Good evening and welcome to the June 19th, 2019 Ashland Select Board meeting. Just as a quick aside, this is also Juneteenth Day, and if those of you who are familiar with it, commemorates the ending of slavery in the U.S., and it dates back to June the 19th of 1865, specifically to the emancipation of slaves in Texas, but it's commemorated now as that that particular event. So we always start with our Pledge of Allegiance. So Mr. DeSoni, if you may do so.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So we're running a little bit late tonight, so we're going to dispense with the vision and mission statement for tonight. We do have a scheduled appearance at 7:15. I neglected to mention that this meeting is being broadcast and recorded by the good folks at WACA-TV. Is there anyone in the room that is also recording this? Seeing none, I will open the meeting at this point to citizens' participation.
Okay. Welcome. Good evening.
Good evening.
And the one thing about being broadcast is not being broadcast live, but will be broadcasted numerous times. It's not being broadcast live tonight on June 20th. I would like to thank the town. Hopefully, when I did my Ashland and Eversource update, pipeline update, I'm hoping to get, I didn't get any emails on my old email address. I'm not expecting any on my new email address, but I'm expecting that the people in the seats here tonight are all sticker shock with what they got on themselves. I know that this could be, these stickers, people that got the stickers on by the Eversource will be more pronounced this coming Monday, May 24th, when they're here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Anyone else for participation this evening? If not, I think we'll move right into our scheduled appearance, which is an update from the Upper Charles Trail Committee, and I think Mr. Rick Hampson is here this evening to present.
Hi, good evening, everybody. I'm Rick Hampson, a member of the Ashland Trail Committee, and thank you for inviting us tonight. We really appreciate it to give you an update, and thank you for your support so far. So we have an agenda. First off, we're going to give you the update that you've requested, specifically the changes that have happened, some new trail pieces that we've identified that are different from what we presented and what you approved back in 2018. We're going to talk about funding. We're pretty excited about this. I think there's some really good areas of opportunity for funding, so we'll give you an update on that. And then I think more of the important part of this discussion presentation is about our priorities, what we need, and specifically as we've written up the easements. I think we're at a critical juncture with this project. We've been doing this for 5 years, and we're at a point now where we really need to be reaching out to some of these landowners. That's really something that we really want to highlight and focus on tonight. Then talk about some potential next steps. Does that sound good?
Sounds good.
Great. So as a refresher, if you can see the map up there, this committee was created to develop a trail across Ashland, one continuous trail, and to be part of a larger trail called the Upper Charles Trail, consisting of 5 towns. Hopkinton to the left, you know, they've been working diligently and they're making progress. We still plan to connect with them in the Hopkinton State Park. That hasn't changed. We have Milford down below. We all know they finished their trail and it's beautiful. I'm really jealous. We want that too. Then we've got Holliston, that's also completed and beautiful. There a lot. And you'll notice with the Holliston one though that it's pretty straight, and part of that reason is because they've had the rail bed they've benefited from. And as most of you guys know, we don't have that in Ashland, so it's a lot more challenging for us with these different parcels of land that we need to access to. Sherburne's making progress. They're negotiating with CSX currently to get an easement on the rail line, which is awesome because that will connect with the east side of our trail. So that would be really great. So again, our charter, our goal right from the beginning has been to create one trail right across our town to connect to this Upper Charles trail system. Specific updates, we had just a couple actually. Again, nothing significantly has changed other than these two items since you approved it. If you can see the Cirrus Apartments area, the RTD district right there. Originally, and actually I'm going to use my pointer right here if you don't mind, my fancy pointer. You can see we had an easement right here from High Street that was to go down through the area where the Cirrus Apartments were being built and meet the MBTA road. There were some challenges with that, the way they developed the property and the topography and some other reasons, so we decided that was not a convenient way to lay the trail. So we found an alternate route, which we call the North Side Cirrus, which goes right on the north side of the Cirrus Apartments. So you would come from High Street around the back of the Cirrus Apartments and drop into the MBTA road on the beautiful footpath that they have on there. The second one is the trolley trail segment, and I think maybe some of you may have already walked that area already. It's a beautiful area, nature. It's got a beautiful pond there. And originally we were to go on this trail here near the Nyanza Cap on an existing trail, but because of the solar farm developments, that didn't work out either. So we found this trolley trail right here, which we're very excited about. I think it's going to work out really, really great. That will access the MBTA road right there near our a YMCA that's going to be built there, which is great news. We've heard some good things from YMCA folks, support of our trail. I mean, they have a lot of fantastic activities. We're going to have fantastic activities in our trail, and to be able to come from downtown to the YMCA or from the Cirrus Apartments or from the train, I think it just all kind of makes sense. And then this little offshoot here into the middle school, that was there on the approved plan that you guys did. And that gives us access to the school. I think it's critically important. We talk about and have the access to our middle school and our high school for obvious reasons, getting our kids involved. Wouldn't it be nice if they could walk to school and not get dropped off in a car? That would be great. So that's just the two key updates we have on the trail. Nothing else really has changed other than these two items. Another key update is the Friends of the Trail group. Many trails have a Friends group which is separate from the committee. Their charter, their goal is to raise funding, to have activities on the trail, to take care of the maintenance, and they've been doing a fantastic job. I don't know if Matthew is here tonight. No. Matthew Marquist, him and the Friends members have just been doing a really fantastic job. Our support is growing, our mailing list, our Facebook. They have a new website. They're creating approved bylaws. They're currently applying for the 501c3 because obviously they want to do the fundraising and manage money. And they've hosted several activities already on different pieces of the trail. Just last weekend, we had at the Dyke Trail. If you guys are not familiar with the Dyke Trail, hopefully I can go back here. That's that beautiful piece here that we as a town have control of. And again, the wildlife, the countryside there is just absolutely gorgeous. And we had a walk last weekend, and it was a really good turnout. So a lot of support around the community for this trail. So the funding, kind of important. Again, we've got some really tremendous opportunities here for funding. The first one being the Mass Trails Grant. So this is a grant that we applied for some months ago, and it's for that new trolley section to engineer and design it. And it's pending, we're waiting, we're hoping, we've got our fingers crossed that we will be successful. It's around $100,000. And part of the requirements for that is a match, a percentage match. And there's an opportunity for us to use this existing $28,000 here, which is part of the planning board mitigation money that we got a few years back. So keep your fingers crossed for that. A few weeks ago, we met with CPA folks. We had a really great meeting. Our goal was to tell them what we're doing, what our challenges are, and specifically around funding. And they were great. They explained the process to us, and I think there's a real opportunity to leverage those funds if we meet the necessary requirements. So we'll be looking at that hopefully in the future. Karen Spilker has been a real supporter of the trail, and she made it aware of the environmental bond bill a couple of years ago, which is, I think, around $3 million. And most recently, her office has said to us, look, why don't you let's not do this in little pieces. Let's get an engineered full trail and bring it up and see if we can have access to that money. That's kind of the dream scenario, but I don't think it's too realistic right now due to the fact that we have this easement challenge, right? That we need to get control and access to these properties, to these pieces of land. But if we were able to do a few of those critical ones in the near future, there's no reason why we can't get the engineering done and go up and present it and hopefully get a big chunk of funding. Local Representative Jack Lewis has earmarked $20,000 as well, so we thank him for that support. I talked a bit about the existing and other. We're not professional fundraisers, we're just volunteers, but we're always thinking and trying to be creative of how to raise money for this project.
Just real quick.
Please.
I remember when Alta did their study and presentation, I think the figure that came out was around, for the total trail, was 10 million?
Yep.
Something like that?
Yep.
Did that include the engineering costs associated with it, or was it just construction?
Yes,
Okay.
it did.
All right.
Yep.
Thanks.
So priorities and what we need, I've touched on this already, and I think if there's one thing that we leave with you tonight, it is the most critical easements. We can get all the funding in the world, but if we don't get access to some of these parcels of land, then it's for nothing. So what we've done is highlighted some of the critical ones here. This one, High Street to MBTA Road. So we talked about the north end of the Cirrus apartments. So coming from High Street around the back of that apartment complex and onto the MBTA Road. We've put the MBTA Road to the Ashland State Park. So Ashland State Park clearly is the jewel of our town, and we want our trail to go through it. People come from miles and miles to benefit from our park. But we do need to get to it from the bottom of the MBTA Road. So everybody should be familiar with that, with the Dunkin' Donuts. We need to get across that around the Voyagers Lane area or President's Row or somewhere around there to get to the park. And by the way, DCR, who obviously manage the Ashland State Park, have been very supportive. They absolutely would love us to have a trail through there. Another critical one here is Chestnut Street to High School Fields. So basically, if you cross over from Homer up Chestnut to go into the side of the cemetery and skirt around the side of the cemetery, not through it, our hope is that we can leverage some of the land that we're negotiating right now for our public safety parcel. What we're asking is, can we be part of those conversations? Because obviously the public safety building is the priority. Absolutely want the best. But we kind of don't want to be forgotten. We want to be part of those conversations because I think it's easy to forget about it. And we want to just have some designated route through that. And that is really a critical piece to this map. If you look here, This is what we're talking about right here, to gain access to that, basically to the high school. If we don't get that easement, we've been looking at alternate routes for years, and there's nowhere for us to go. So this is probably the most critical. Yes, we can go on a busy road, but that's really not going to be nice. And then high school to Cedar, down the Eversource easement, a hot topic right now in this town. But they've been amenable already to discussions, and I believe there is a landowner down there that is also open to some conversations. And then to get into the back area of the Market Basket, so we can cross the 126 and get to the Dyke Trail out to Sherburne. And so I guess the ask for that is, you know, we would really love to get some town resources, leadership, to start those conversations, those outreach to those landowners. The other ask here, and priority, bit of a lesser priority, but still a priority, is the GIS resources. As we begin to develop and enhance our maps, when we're planning for engineering, we really need to get more fine detail of these parcels in terms of topography, conservation land, all these things. And I guess the good news is the town already has GIS mapping software, so I guess what we're asking is just to be able to leverage that and maybe have some resources help us with it. So, in summary or next steps, really what we're asking for is to plan for a meeting with the select board and town manager to talk about the process for requesting those easements. We'd like to talk about other resources that might be available to our project. I know some other projects in town have been able to leverage some of other resources, such as the DPW, to do some things. We would love that too. And we put on the bottom here, prioritizing the project. You know, every town has critical priority projects. This town does. And they're up here, the schools, safety building, all of that stuff. And I'm not saying we're up there, but we kind of feel we're down here right now. And what we're asking is to be kind of here. To us, this, and I think a lot of people, this is a really important project because it's going to benefit the whole community. You know, from our seniors walking on there, our students, our people that are traveling through our town, our commuters. There's so many opportunities to provide value to our community, and we would just love it to be more of a priority, I guess. So yeah, that's pretty much the update. Any questions, we'd be happy to take.
Great,
Chair,
just a
can
sec.
Yeah.
So, thank you for the update, very good.
Thank you.
We'll talk a little bit later on about, you know, next steps, but I think Mr. Magnani had his hand up first, so.
I'm sorry, thank you. With respect to your, the areas of concern that are of major importance for the bike path, the priorities such as the Chestnut Street to the high school area, going along the area of the public safety parcel that has been deeded to us. Do you have a more detailed map of that specific location? And the reason why I ask that is because if we were to use that piece as an overlay to see where that path is going to actually be put on that property, it would be better for us to get a visual look as to where it's going to go.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, right now, we're talking in generalities, and it's kind of hard to understand where this is actually going to be placed.
Yep.
Without seeing it on a site map. So is there any availability of having that map sooner than later?
Yeah, so obviously many of us have walked that area, so we're familiar with it, but in terms of a map, I think that's part of our second ask with, you know, if we can get the GIS, access to the GIS software, we could help develop that map pretty quickly.
Okay.
And engineering as well.
Mm.
Yeah.
I'm not really worried about the engineering at this point, to be very honest with you, Joel. I just wanted to see where the path was going to be actually placed. Because some of the negotiations that we're in right now is beneficial to all concerned.
We greatly appreciate that. being considered as part of those discussions. The problem we have is that we're trying to stay as close as is reasonable to the cemetery and as far away from any other use of the public safety parcel. We're way up a hill, and the hill is sloped. And when we had Alta here, he highlighted that this can be a difficult section to construct because you're trying to go flat on a hill, on a side of a hill. And so the point of this is that until we have, an engineer might come along and say, yeah, you could be over here. Give Joe he's asking for a little guidance on what to negotiate for or discuss. But you guys are nuts. This is gonna cost you an extra, it's gonna be double the cost if you go here instead of here. That's what we don't have yet.
That's my concern, is because if here's the area that's gonna be beneficial, yet it's smack middle in the piece of property that we're gonna be building the building, that's not beneficial for the public safety building
Right.
at all.
It in no way do we anticipate being anywhere near the public safety building. We're envisioning being up very close to the cemetery.
The wood line, I would assume, right?
Yes, and we also, when we've walked it, there's quite it appeared to us, I mean, we're not experts on any of this, but it appeared that there were quite a bit of wetlands lower down the hill from us. So we almost envision, like we're almost cut off by the wetlands and up higher, and nowhere near anything that might go on lower down along 135 or anything like that. We don't anticipate any conflict there with any other use of the parcel.
But at some point in time within the near future, if we could get a map overlay on that would be very helpful for us.
We can do our best to try to draw something. We really could use help with the mapping, though. We just don't have the tools or the expertise to do that.
It also might be good as well, and I've had the opportunity to walk with Tony Lewis a number of times through most of this projected trail, and I would suggest it's probably not the best time of the year with everything grown out.
Right.
But at some point to actually walk these sections, and I think you really get a good sense. So I think, Rob, you had some comments?
Sure, and I've just, the other thing I had to add to that, given the nature, the speed of our negotiations, discussions, I think the sooner we kind of at least kind of try to map out or have at least a crude plan of where the trail could go, given everything that's going on in that parcel, the better, the sooner we can do that, the better, and a
That's
site
my
visit
concern,
may
yeah.
be, perfect time. That's, I think, a great suggestion. The only thing I wanted to say is that, I've been a longtime member of the Upper Charles Trail Committee, and, I thought that, and so I fully endorse this presentation. I thought it was a great job, Rick, and, I think we've laid out the issues and updates very well, so, thank you for that.
One of the things that we can offer you, but we just didn't know what the protocol or the timing or the ownership of that parcel is, we could, and we have avoided doing this, we could go tag the trees so that anybody coming through there or wanting to inspect it, or if a town planner could come and help us map it, or whatever the process would be, we'd be happy to do that, but we have, our understanding was that it's not town property and we're not supposed to do that, and thus we have not.
That's good. Yolanda?
So thank you for the update, and I also want to thank the committee. You guys have been working hard for a long time, and as someone who supports the trail, I think you've done a yeoman's work, and I know it's been very slow, and I know for myself, and this is just my opinion, is that when we are having conversations, the trail does come up in conversation. The trail, we are thinking about it as we're looking at different parcels, as we're talking about different things. I hear your request to try to get moved up in the priority list. For me, I see it moving up in the priority list. As other things get moved along, we can move this up in the priority list. And it's not that we're not thinking about you. It's not that we don't think it's important. I think this is critical. I think it is something that, anything we can do to be getting funding, to be doing things. I've also been of the mindset, and I've been somewhat vocal, I think it's great that you have the Friends group working, because I think that's critical. You have to get people who are willing to help you do the work, help you raise money, and help support this.
Absolutely.
As well as the town doing work and getting funding through the community and through our tax dollars. And of course, any grants that we can get to help do this is then our tax dollars coming back, and I'm fully supportive of that. My question, and I don't know if it's just to you or to Michael, is I know the town planner and the assistant town planner, when we had our old one, were coming to your meetings and were working with you guys. Because of the priority list right now, I don't know if that's happening yet, and if not, maybe it can't happen immediately because our new town planner and our assistant are still getting up to speed. But I would hope that within, 3 to 6 months, some of this GIS, that kind of work could be used to help support the trail. So know that we are thinking about you guys. We appreciate you coming and, all this. And it's one of those things that, because we don't have an empty trail bed, it's very difficult to say to people, this is where the trail is going to be, and get them to buy in and get excited about it. And I understand that. So I think the walks that you've done, I apologize that I personally have not been able to do any of them. I'm hoping to be able to do more in the future. But keep it up, keep getting people excited and involved, and that will also help bring this up as a priority as other things are getting accomplished.
Sure, thank you.
Brandy,
So
did you have a?
Could I make a
bring-
comment, please?
Sure,
I'm a
absolutely.
committee member also. My name is Martin Ring. There is a little chicken and egg, as you've said, but
Right.
there's a little bit more. We can't draw the map without some professional help, without some kind of engineer that looks at the gradients and the topography and where the water is and stuff like that. So I would love for us to be able to give you a map, but we can't walk on the properties. We can't survey. We have no power to answer that. So until we get some kind of resource from our own grant making or from the town support, there's really no way for us to move this forward at all. Okay? We're at a stasis. We can draw all we want, but it's meaningless without somebody going out and looking at it and saying, yeah, it's feasible.
Yeah. So let me suggest, Marty, that I think that's a very critical piece to this, as well as the easement issue. That, to me, I think is probably the biggest piece at this point. And Michael, you can speak to the new town planner who has experience, fortunately, with trails, with this kind of trail. So I would suggest that, hand it over to Brandy in a second, but it was, I think that the next step would be, and I don't think we need to sit full committee to full committee, but we take a couple of select board members, a couple of trail members, town manager, town planner, sit down and start to look at how do we address the easements, how do we address the mapping. So
Just real quickly, I think, number one, good presentation, and I think you guys are doing some great work. I think some of the expertise that you're talking about, Marty, that's stuff that we don't have on staff, like a transportation engineer. And I think that's certainly something that we could look at hiring and stuff. We could certainly do some of the mapping stuff. I do get a little concerned and maybe even a little bit frustrated when I hear things about like the easements and stuff like that. I've had, Joel, I think you and Tony came and sat, in my office probably 3 or 4 months ago, and we were talking about the Cirrus Apartments route, and I identified the different people and said, this is what you need to do and how to move forward with this. And I don't think anything's ever happened with that. So I'm trying to figure out how to make you feel like you are the priority that you are, in what we can do to help accommodate that. Because I think the fact of the matter is that a lot of these sub-projects that we talk about, a lot of them have the trail as part of a component, and they are certainly the trail is I don't want to necessarily say foremost in our mind, but I'll reiterate what Yolanda said. It's always part of the conversation. If we forget about it, Rob makes sure that we remember it, and I mean that sincerely. So I guess I'm just going to be struggling here with determining what kind of resources you need, what we have on staff and what we can provide and what.
Well, I think we have to sit down and have a realistic discussion about, you know, what we can do as local government and as a committee, and what we need to outreach for. So, but I just want to, you know, as Yolanda was talking, I was making notes at our priority project list. And there's 5 of them on our ongoing project list, 3 of which overlap with the trail. So it very much is integral to those projects. And we do talk about it all the time. And as we plan these things out, whether it's the rail transit district, whether it's the public safety building, whether it's a downtown renovation, they're all part of those processes, so.
I guess to your point, Michael, I think we really just want to define what that process is
Okay.
for the reach out to the easements. You know, I think as a committee, we think it should be a town resource leadership reaching out, not us. I think that's really the
Yeah,
point we're trying to
I had
make.
suggested having a conversation with Rob and Steve about together, collectively approaching those property owners, and we
Yeah.
identified them and at least starting the conversation. But that was a few months ago,
Yeah.
and I'm not necessarily sure what's happened since then.
So I think that's a great idea. We
Okay.
could plan for that meeting.
All right.
just have one-
Brandy, I think, has some.
Just a quick point. First of all, thank you for the presentation. I was part of the Friends Dyke Trail Walk a week or so ago, and
Oh,
it was a
great.
it was a part of Ashland I never knew existed before.
A lot of
before the
people
walk.
are not aware of it. It's
It's a
beautiful.
great, it's a great little part of Ashland. I was just curious, you had mentioned the environmental bond bill as sort of like the engineering component, possibly the funding, and you said it was probably not sort of realistic, that, you know, I wasn't sure sort of where you guys were in the process or what that process looked like, you know, from Senate President Spilka.
Do you want to talk about that? Because you had the conversation.
I just want to caution, we have a 7:45 public hearing that we need to, so that's why I'm bringing it up right now, is that.
How is it that time always becomes when I come up
Time
here?
stands still when you get up, Joe.
I had a conversation here with I'll call her a representative from Karen Spilka's office, because I don't know what the rules are about environmental bond bills. I have no background in any of this legislative process or what we need to do. And that was the question. You know, if we came today and said, give us our $3 million, are we good? And the answer was, no, you're not good. So I said, well, so she said, you know, I was asked, what is your current process? And I said, well, we are hogtied, literally. I mean, this easement, I very much appreciate your suggestion of sitting down and making a plan for regardless of when it could be implemented or what its priority is. It'd be nice to have that plan in place and understand what is the process going to be. So I said, so what we're doing right now, we have this Mass Trails grant, and if we get the grant, we're gonna do the engineering for this 1 mile section. For people who don't know, it's more or less from the MBTA road to the post office downtown. That's the route. Most of it, half of it in the woods along the Trolley Brook Trail. And I said, after that, you know, if we can get funding maybe from our CPA fund, we'll do the construction of that section, and we'll be good. You know, this is good. We're making a little bit of progress incrementally. I said, and then after that, we don't really have, you know, we'll try to apply for next year's Mass Trails grant, but we're envisioning coming under the environmental bond bill, one little parcel, you know, 1 mile at a time or whatever it is, and we were strongly discouraged from that approach. This is really bad. You don't come to the legislature and send this to the governor for funding or whatever the process is with, you know, coming back every 3 months with your little silly next quarter mile, 1/8 mile, and like that. We were really discouraged. She said, you know, maybe you come twice. You get all your easements in place, you come and do a full phase 1, engineer the whole trail. You're shovel ready at that point. You don't have funding, but you're shovel ready to proceed. And then what funds are available, or perhaps future bond bills or whatever it might be, you come back for construction funding. We can't do anything. We can't do anything. We are pinned down because we cannot go for a grant, even from a private granting source. No one will give us a grant on land where we don't have site control. That's the buzzword.
Right.
Yeah.
We have to get
Yeah.
site control. So the question really, you know, we sit and say, how can we be productive
Yeah.
with where we are? and we think we've pretty much hit the end of the line here. I mean,
So why don't we, let's do a reset. Let's
That's great.
agree to do that, and we will sit down and, all right, and we'll try to move this forward as best we can. all
Sounds
right?
great.
Okay.
We love it. Thank
All
you.
right. Joe, you
Just
had a,
one quick thing.
yeah.
For you folks that, I know you're in the dark with respect to this, but there's been ongoing negotiations with the property owners that deeded us and gifted us monies, I should say properties for the public safety building. They've agreed to give almost 99% of the land back to us on that area, except for 2 acres of land. So if you're looking at the property to the right, now their engineers are out there and they're remapping that whole area. So once we get that, I would be more than happy to give you a copy, just to sit down and show you that if this is the area that you're looking to put your path in, you'd have good graces, because we now have that property that belongs to us now.
If there would be any possibility of maybe having a member of the board and members or two of our committee to meet with the engineers, just whether they accommodate us or not, or whatever their needs are.
They're actually out there flagging right now. They're out
Well,
there
that's what
doing
I'm
what they
saying.
need to do.
If we could have an on-site meeting with them for an hour and just walk, you're only talking, you know, a couple of 100 yards. If we could do that so that at least they'd have an understanding of what our needs are, because if they don't, we get
Yeah.
what we get, and then
I
that's the
think
end of the discussion.
We can include that in our discussion when we meet.
Sounds great.
Yeah.
All right.
That's good, 'cause
Okay.
I think,
Yeah, because it's the whole back of the property now.
I think actually walking the ground is very
Which
important,
covers
because
your,
it's hard
which
to,
covers your path through, so.
Okay,
All right,
Great.
thank you.
thank you.
Appreciate it. Good job.
nice job.
All right,
guys.
so we'll reach out, Michael, and we'll schedule something soon.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, great, thank you. 7:45, and we have a scheduled public hearing, and this is for a economic development incentive program, reviewing the rules and the regulations. So the advertisement reads as follows: Town of Ashland, acceptance of rules and regulations for the Economic Development Incentive Program. The Town of Ashland, Mass. Select Board will hold a public hearing to adopt rules and regulations of the Ashland Economic Development Program, House Bill Number 4975, an act authorizing the Town of Ashland to establish a special revenue fund for an economic development program. A public hearing for the approval of the rules and regulations of this program will be held on Wednesday, June the 19th, 2019, at 7:45 in the Select Board Meeting Room located at Ashland Town Hall, 101 Main Street, Ashland, Mass. Parties wishing to be heard on this matter should appear at the time and place indicated above. For more information or to submit comments, please contact Beth Reynolds at 508-532-7905 or at breynolds@ashlandmass.com. And this is actually signed by Beth Reynolds, Economic Development Director, Town of Ashland. So the hearing is now in session.
Terrific.
Greetings.
Greetings. So, basically what we're here to do today is to review the rules and regulations that we set forth for the Economic Development Incentive Program. Just, should I recap the program maybe?
Please.
Okay. So, the incentive program is actually multifaceted. There's several different buckets, that we're trying to utilize this fund for. So I'll just kind of run through those. I guess first I should backtrack and just say that the reason that this incentive program was created was to provide assistance to private businesses and individuals in order to encourage and facilitate economic growth and development, including creation of jobs, improvement and enhancement of buildings and infrastructure, and increase the value of the real estate tax and general tax base. So the funds are basically, or the incentive programs are basically spelled out as the amenities financing program. So that basically, if a business owner or a landowner has a new business coming into town, they can take advantage of a rental assistance. So the town or this fund would pay their rent up to $10,000. The second part of that could be equipment costs. So if there's a business, an existing business that wants to expand, or if there's a new business that wants to come in and they need refrigerators and freezers, they can apply for the amenities financing program in order to get equipment costs taken care of. Again, up to $10,000. I will note with that, there is an increase to $20,000 per bucket if they meet a criteria, which is increasing jobs. They need to provide 5 full-time jobs. They also need to invest at least $250,000 of their own personal investment, and then show a strategic plan showing benefit to the town. The sign and facade improvement is the second. And that is actually for existing business owners to take advantage of if they want to repaint, put new windows in, do some landscaping work. It does not include any public land, so it does not go towards sidewalks or anything like that. It is a private investment, and that's up to $5,000. And then the last is with an agreement with Needham Bank for interest-free loans. A new business or a business that, again, that is looking to expand in Ashland can utilize this fund. It is interest-free for 2 years, and they do have to go through the process with the bank to in order to apply for this. So basically what these rules and regulations are is they basically spell out the programs. It also shows the process. So the process is an application comes through. It goes into the Economic Development Advisory Group for approval or recommendation, and it goes to the town manager and then to the select board. Each year, at the end of the year annually, you'll have a recap of the number of businesses that utilized this fund, of the money that is left in the fund, and then any detailed progress of the impact that it made in Ashland.
Beth, is there a requirement for how long they need to stay in town once they get this money?
Yes, 3 years.
It
And there is
I'm
a, there
sorry, I
is
probably
a,
wasn't paying
no,
attention.
I don't think I mentioned that, so that's a good question. There is a clawback clause in there as well, so they do have to give back 90% if they break that 3-year,
Okay.
Is the,
within 90 days, sorry.
we
90%.
had, in our backup, we had red line version.
Yes.
So I just want to make sure that this is the same,
Yes,
same
it's just with
document.
the accepted,
Yeah. Okay.
yes, it's just easier to read, I'm sorry about that.
I'm assuming these town council made these revisions.
Okay. Anything else, Beth, or you open for questions?
That's it, open for
So,
questions.
open it to the board for questions?
Have we had any applicants yet?
Oh, yes. We have actually. The interest-free loan is the most popular. So Needham Bank has been very busy. But we do have 2 sign and facade improvement grants, which is great, that are kind of waiting in the wings. And we do have an amenities financing in the wings as well. Just
It's, I mean, already the demand for the program and the interest of the program has exceeded what was appropriated originally. So that's a good sign. That's one of the reasons why it was so important to do the meals tax as its own special revenue account, so we can actually put more funding into this program without taking money away from the general fund.
I do have to say, there was a restaurant, there is somebody that is interested in a property in town, and I had a meeting with them, and I was able to use this tool, and they were blown away. They really, just the fact that we're working to show that we're business friendly and that we want to support these businesses, it really does go a long way. It's a great tool.
Couple of questions, but before I do that, Steve reminded me, and I was going to do this anyway. I would like to congratulate you on your State Unsung Hero Award that was presented to you yesterday at the State House for all the amazing work that you've been doing here in Ashland. We are certainly fortunate to have you, and certainly this program that you've brought to us and have, worked through is, of course, one of those reasons that you got that award. So congratulations.
Congratulations, Beth.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It was a special
Now a few
day.
questions.
Now get ready.
You mentioned in the process that there's an advisory board.
Yes.
So has that been appointed, or who needs to appoint that advisory board?
So it's a town manager appointment.
Okay.
We had originally talked about the Economic Development Advisory Group, and I think that it makes sense to continue with that.
And who is that current Economic Development Advisory Group? Who's on it?
Yeah, so Dennis Ahern, he is a business owner in town from Ryan and Agostinelli Teller
Yeah.
Okay.
Insurance
Yep.
Agency. Julia Chase is as a resident of town. They're gonna kill me. But I can't think
Put you
of
on
it
the
off the
spot.
top of my head, I know,
How
right?
many people are on it?
There's 4. Alan McIntosh is a
Okay.
business owner as well as a resident in town. And Pam Bathen is a real estate agent.
And also a
Yeah.
resident.
And
Okay,
a
so they're all
resident as well.
residents and business owners in
Right.
town.
Right, except for Dennis, he is not a resident.
Okay.
He lives in Natick.
Okay.
Good.
Good, thank you. And then another question, Michael, you said we can increase the amount? What's that process? Is that just we have more people than requested so we can increase it, or what's the process to increase the amount?
Well, it's still subject to appropriation at town meeting, even though
Okay.
it comes from
The
its
fund
own
that we
special revenue
created.
fund. What we would do is during the budgetary process, we would just appropriate more money into that fund during the year. Or if we find mid-year that we need to add more, we could also make an adjustment at the special town meeting in the fall
Okay.
for that way.
Okay, so right now, what we're looking to do tonight is approve this so that you can then decide, appoint the advisory group based on who you have, and then at one of our next meetings, you'd come forward with some requests for us to approve. Correct?
Sound good.
Sounds good.
Anyone else for?
I just have a quick question. Is there a maximum number, like, are you gonna have like rounds of applicants, or is it going to be kind of on a rolling basis?
Rolling basis.
Okay, and there's no
We
max?
keep going back and forth with that, but it's really when a business comes in, I would never want to hold them up.
Say no.
So
Okay.
it's just a rolling business.
Okay.
Good. Rob?
Just, so the advisory committee, so that's gonna be appointed by the town manager. Is there some reason, because we usually, we appoint a ton of committees, and I'm not sure we want yet another one, but why is this one different? Are there, like, did we think about that this would be better for you to make the appointments as opposed to us, or through the usual process, or?
I think so, and this actually evolved during the home rule petition process. So can't necessarily speak to why. I think you felt like between Beth and I, we had a much better sense of like
The people.
on the ground.
The business people
Yeah.
and people like that.
And then I think it's also important to note that I think originally that it was almost like the town manager would make the awards.
Oh, yeah.
Like now we have it come
Advisory
through
Yeah.
the select board for the final approval.
Well, if people are comfortable with that, I guess.
Yeah.
I think
Good.
so.
Any other questions for Beth? Beth, any other comments? No? Well, congratulations again.
Yes.
Thank you.
And I will entertain a motion if we're ready.
I move that we adopt the rules and regulations of the Ashland Economic Development Program as presented.
I'll second that.
There you go.
So we've got a motion and a second. We've completed our discussion, so all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? And that carries 5-0.
Terrific, I'll get to work.
Great, thank you.
Again,
Thanks, Beth.
Congratulations
Enjoy your work,
again.
Beth.
Very good. All right, so at this point, we move on to our priority project update. So whenever you're ready, Mr. Town Manager?
Sure. So we'll start off first with the Rail Transit District. I think a couple of things that are going on here. I believe there was a site walk held last Sunday with Mr. Powers, who actually is in attendance tonight, and I believe probably 20 residents, 20
about right.
residents and neighbors. I don't know, Brandy, do you want to give kind of feedback on from your
Sure.
perspective? I was unable to make it,
Yep.
unfortunately.
I think it was a good meeting. I think it was good that the residents got to walk the property line. So Tom and his team had marked where the large buildings were going to go, the 2 4-story buildings. And then we also walked the border as well. If I can find my map, I have a map. And, there was some definite feedback from the residents. I think that, generally speaking, it's a large footprint. So I think that that's something that the residents have concerns over. Also, the number of units came up, and that was a discussion point as well. Tom did we talked about a balloon test, which I know is something that the board has talked about before. And Tom has offered to do to float two balloons, one from the 4-story building with the closest corner basically to the Apple Ridge neighborhood. Although that's not the highest point in the development, that's the one closest to the neighborhood. And then also from the other, sort of like the midpoint of the other large 4-story building. And so I think that will give residents, I think that's scheduled for Friday,
Scheduled
I
for
believe.
Friday. I believe it's still scheduled for Friday, Tom?
Yeah.
And the helium will stay in the balloons to where there's gonna be like a 24-hour period where
Oh,
people
okay.
can go
Yeah,
view
that's
it.
good.
The balloons will go up.
Tom, can you come to the mic?
Tom Powers, Powers Realty, representing United Group. So we will fly the balloons. We're going to fly 4, maybe 6, but there will be 2 for each of the 2 buildings at a minimum. One at the closest corner to the Apple Ridge residents or neighbors, and then one sort of in the middle of the building. And then the balloons will fly, roughly 55 to 60 feet, which would, potentially, could show what the peak of the roof could be. So at a worst case.
Okay.
And then there also may be a beacon for at night, so it might flash at night. It will flash at night.
So, and it's a 24-hour time
They're gonna
frame?
fly, we're gonna try to do it like 2, 3 o'clock Friday afternoon, and then as long as the helium will
Yeah.
stay in the balloon, so we're thinking it'll be 24 hours, but probably they'll start to float or fall, 12, 1, 2, 3 o'clock.
So the best
Saturday.
time to get there would be Friday afternoon if possible?
If you can get there Friday afternoon would be good, or
Okay.
early Saturday morning,
Okay.
would be the recommendation.
Okay, good, thank you.
Yep.
And the only other thing is that the residents have been pretty involved in this process. And there's been quite a bit of communication amongst the Apple Ridge neighbors. And Tom has offered to meet with the residents, go through some of the engineering, the actual buildings, because there was some concerns also with things like what the facade is gonna look like, how the lights are going to be angled and things like that, and that was something that was discussed as well. So I think it was a good, it wasn't a happy meeting, but it was a good meeting. So I think that was probably
Good.
Something got
Thank you.
accomplished anyway.
yeah.
Thank you.
So the only other thing I would mention with regards to the rail transit district in the UGC development is, I think at the last meeting, we talked about, we're kind of in this either-or scenario where we have this land that's allocated to be for municipal purposes, and, trying to determine, what space that's going to be, what space United needs for development, things of that nature. And I had presented the idea of the board possibly carving out a piece and sending that as a proposal to United Group. One thing I do want to mention is that I was at the Mendez School Building Committee meeting last night, and one of the things that we talked about is one of the ideas is potentially creating a new Mendez school where maybe the current middle school is, and have like a campus period. And so they had asked if some of this land could be used for that purpose. It is allowed for general municipal purposes. That's what the deed restriction says, but it just adds another complicating layer to this. So I guess what I'm asking is, do you still want to try to go down that route, or do you want to try to go down that route of coming up with a proposal to send to United Group in terms of the land to carve out?
So here's my kind of concern about that, which of course is the possible trail access for that, which we haven't. That's why it'd be great if we could like pick one route or the other, or say we're pretty confident about one, and then that gives us a little more flexibility. But until we do that, we have to kind of keep that in mind, and hopefully Tom, you're aware that for the potential trail access in that parcel, correct? I don't know if we've talked much about it, but
I am aware of it,
We're-
but I also am aware of what I just heard.
about the school.
No, about
Just-
the
Us
Trail
presenting.
River
Oh,
Trail Committee suggesting that they were gonna abandon that trail.
Yeah, Tom, can you come to the mic,
Yeah,
please?
I'm not sure what his concern is.
I thought I heard, and somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought I heard that the path between Cirrus and UGC was potentially gonna be abandoned,
That's right.
and they would connect at High Street,
That's
running
correct.
through the
That's our
emergency exit.
preferred, that's our preferred route.
Right,
But
so,
what I'm saying is we want to keep our options
Yeah,
open, or at least.
sure.
We have a
Yeah.
plan, we need a plan B, because we
Yeah.
don't,
I-
obviously with the easements, right?
Yes,
So-
yep, totally.
So
I
that's
understand
really
that.
the conversation, so, but to get to your question about, looking at what is what our preferred parcel is, my opinion is we should be looking at that and determining what is the optimum piece of property that benefits the town in the best way. So, it's something we need to sit down and look, and maybe it's something we discuss when we do a development liaison group meeting, when we get to that point, and we start to look at that component.
I guess my question really is, at this point, is we're spending a tremendous amount of money. And, we have architects, engineers, we're moving forward. I'm spending time out here meeting with the residents. We cut a bunch of trees down today so we could do the balloon test for Friday. We're prepping for the planning board meeting, on the 27th. I am intending to try to have a charrette next week, if possible. I mean, it's, whether it's before the planning board meeting or we do it next Friday or maybe next weekend, I don't know, but we've invited the residents to come in and to talk to them. We're gonna be before the planning board the 27th. The question is, we're now going into the dog days of summer, and, when does this liaison committee?
Well, we can do it, right after the planning board meeting. I mean, it's not something we have to delay.
Okay.
It's just, I think it's just, we agreed that it was part of the process, so.
So we're prepared to do that, and then, I would say, we've spent a tremendous amount of money. We were with Callahan Construction today. The site that has been proposed and informally solicited, around town, if you will, is the least expensive to build. So if you start looking at, trying to move the development down to the lower portion of the site, you're gonna end up basically with a bathtub effect, because you're gonna end up with two huge retaining walls on either side and in the back of the site, in order to get a tabletop to build, the development. The seniors are not gonna have, like, the way Campanelli has, where you have these terrace buildings going up the hill. You need it to be flat and level to get the tenants from their buildings to the clubhouse, especially during the winter time. So ice and snow, slip and fall, those kinds of things really don't work well for the seniors, on a terrace site. So,
Okay.
but we're willing to, we would like to sit down with everybody and try to come to an agreement, as quickly as possible,
Okay.
both in terms of the location and, what we're proposing.
Great, okay, thank you.
Yep.
So I'm gonna meet with Compass, who is the project manager for the Mendez project,
Yeah.
and kind of have them flesh out a little bit more of what they were
Okay.
thinking in terms of possibility.
Because this is still just, the feasibility of what we're going to do for the Mendez. Yes, we want to keep our options open in
Right.
regards to space that the town has, but this is still just, the
Yeah.
feasibility of what they're looking for in regards to what's going to happen with the Mendez.
I
So,
don't want
mean,
anybody to take away from that the new Mendez school is gonna be at the middle school
or
site.
that there's going to be a new
Definitive.
Mendez, or
So-
there's been no we haven't even started the feasibility study for what's happening at the Mendez, so we got to be careful. What time is the balloon test on Friday? I apologize, I stepped out.
I think we're shooting for probably later in the day, but somewhere between 2 and 4.
Okay.
I think there was an email.
And then hopefully they'll
You
make it
can-
through,
you can walk
2 o'clock on Saturday.
Okay.
The weather's,
Yeah.
the weather's gonna cooperate, I think, Friday night and Saturday.
Yeah,
Right.
So that should work
Good.
out pretty well.
okay, appreciate that, thanks.
Thanks, Tom.
All right, Michael.
Well, last but not least, I did, about that Mass Trails grant, I did check in today to see if there was any movement on that. And it's still apparently on the governor's desk, so, where it's been for a
Wow.
while. And I do think, just kind of going back to the discussion with the Upper Charles Trail, I think let's assume we get that grant, let's think positively. I think everybody will feel a little bit better at that point, because we'll actually be moving something forward.
Yeah.
And I think we'd all feel a little better about that. All right. So the public safety building, let you know that HKT and Vertex, who are our architects and our project manager respectfully, they actually met with the chiefs this week and actually most of last week to revise some of the programming elements to the building. So that went very well. I'll turn it over to Joe now. One of the things that we have talked about is the possibility of getting more land as a gift from the Fafford Corporation. It's about a 12-acre parcel. We were gifted originally about 4 acres, and so Joe has had conversations with them. And Joe, I'll turn it over to you.
They were very receptive, and I just want to thank Mr. and Mrs. Fafford for first sitting down with me and going over some of the suggestions that we had. Originally, when we went to special town meeting, there was some misunderstanding and wording, and that has been resolved, and they appreciate the effort of us coming out and sitting down and talking with them. And as a result of sitting down and talking with them, they're gonna gift us, and they're gonna provide us the additional land up in the back area. I have a map. I don't know if we have a map that we could put up on here, which is kind of sad, but I can pass it around at least for the folks of the Upper Charles Trail. You can see where this additional land is
Is this the one,
going
Joe,
to
you want me to hand it to?
Yeah, if you want,
You
if
can
you
give them this
can, that
here
would be
as well.
great, so they
That's a
can
good
take a look at it.
That one's better.
That'll provide us additional lands to do the things that we would like to do with respect to the size of the building, and make it a little bit more feasible to put and restructure it in the property that was given to us. And instead of cramming everything together, it'll be a little bit more widespread, and it allows us additional parking as well. And it also allows the opportunity for us to put the possibility of other projects in town, like maybe a skate park or maybe a dog park in that area. So that would be helpful.
You think having a trail
And the
going
well,
to
you got
that
the trail
area.
up in the back area, so.
Right. Or
it-
even
or-
closer to the buildings.
Whatever, but
That's
if it's gonna make it a
Yeah.
lot easier instead of going up a 90-degree incline,
Exactly.
because you're not getting younger.
I am, but
So that's, I was very happy and I'm very pleased to announce that, and I went there today to see if we could try to get another 2.5 acres from them. They didn't say no. Of course, they didn't say yes either. But at the same token, they were listening to what we had to say, and unfortunately, Mr. Fafford was not available. He wasn't feeling well. So Madeline said she was gonna go sit down and talk with her husband about the possibility of doing that. They would like to put some, not townhouses, but 5 or 6 additional 55 and older houses up there. And instead of the 6 fourplexes. So that's a change in and of itself. So make it a little bit smaller, the
Yeah.
footprint would be a little smaller, so we'd have some additional availability of land area.
Okay. So the availability of that land is still open at this
It's
point?
still open at this
Yeah.
time, so
Good,
hopefully,
good.
I'll check back with them next week and
Yeah.
maybe
Super.
we'll get another result.
Good-
Hopefully it'll
good
be some
work,
progress.
Joe. Thank
Well,
you.
nice job,
Thank you
Joe.
for doing
Yeah.
that,
Good job,
Joe.
Joe.
My
Appreciate
pleasure.
it.
I
So,
appreciate doing it.
This, I've provided a revised gift agreement to you. The main change, obviously, the size of the parcel is larger. But remember when we had the original LOI, a topic of concern was the easement language that provided access to the back. That is now null and void
Right.
with the addition. So I hope everybody feels more confident and comfortable now, and
Yeah.
willing to move forward and sign the amended grant agreement. I think, did you take the original?
I gave it to her.
Okay.
Yeah, I gave
So
it to
do we
Mrs.
need
Fafford.
to take a vote this evening to?
You could do that, and then
Yep.
they have a copy of the original. Once we
Okay.
get their executed copy, I'll just have you come in and sign it.
So,
Sign.
just to be clear, so what we have in front of us is, we've already voted the initial gift. Is this voting, and I think I'm reading it correctly, this is voting the additional property separately?
The additional property,
Okay.
yes.
Right.
Okay.
Very good. Any other questions about the
Yeah,
gift
I just
agreement?
wanted to, so,
Yeah.
I just wanted to congratulate Joe and Michael, I think, was involved for this negotiation. It's really a substantial gift, and I can't speak for the trail committee, but I think if we can make this work, I think people will be very grateful, and that,
Mhm.
and the Faffords should be recognized for that
Yeah,
contribution.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And
So,
I duly noted that to both
yeah,
Howard and
yeah.
Ed on that last week.
And
with
I think,
respect to this.
you know, if we can put a trail in that area, I see a lot of, you know, both for his his housing and the public
Right.
safety building and the other things you mentioned. So it could be a win-win for everybody if we can make it work. It'd be great.
Absolutely.
I mean, we're up to now about 10 acres out of the 12-acre parcel. So
Super.
it's been a significant gift, and I think Joe's done a
Okay.
great job with
Yes,
it.
thank you, Joe.
All right, so if there's no further discussion, entertain a motion for the gift agreement.
I move that we approve the gift agreement between 58 Exchange Ashland LLC and the town of Ashland for the additional portion of property as noted in our maps.
I'll second.
Now, you have a second, a motion and a second. Any further discussion? If none, all those in favor?
Aye.
And all those opposed? So that passes 5-0. So thank you.
Thank
Great,
you.
thanks.
Good
And
work,
just-
Joe.
Thank
Just
you,
a
guys.
technical,
My pleasure.
is the other, what's the status of the original one? Is there an official transfer? How is that working?
Well,
What-
we've been in the process of
Yeah.
transferring that, so that requires, you know, a survey, some work with land court. That's all been happening in the
Yeah,
past.
so we should
There is-
probably do it all together, it sounds like.
Well, exactly, and so
Yeah, okay.
they're actually now out flagging that
Great.
Yes,
that
they are.
property.
They were there yesterday, and I think they
The new
finished up
portion.
today. Yeah, the new portion.
So we were gonna have to do a new A&R plan, and it
Right.
combined
Okay.
lots and then separated them out again. It was pretty
Mhm.
complicated. So that's all I have on the public safety building. Just moving to downtown improvements. The one thing I really wanna communicate, predominantly tonight is that we're expecting the water work, the work on the water mains on, Main Street to start probably the first week of July, at least in terms of mobilization. So we'll have a lot more information getting out to the public about that. It's certainly gonna have some traffic impacts. You know, it's not tearing up the whole road on Main Street, but there are gonna be a significant number of pits that have to be, you know, dug up. But, just wanted to give everybody a heads up about that.
Are they starting from, I'm sorry to interrupt, are they starting from Main and Myrtle and working their way down?
Yes.
Okay.
So, actually, it's gonna be Main and Water, and then they'll work their
Got it.
way on down to the
Got it.
intersection with
Okay.
Summer and Homer. So it's good that that work is starting.
Can I ask, so I get an email from Framingham about the work that they're doing every week, because I was interested in some of that. Is that something we could try to do? If people are on our email list, we can say, okay, you know, this week you're gonna see work from Main to, you know, from Myrtle, from Water Street down to Pleasant Street, and this is the impact it'll have, and
Yeah,
the
we
more information we can get out, the better.
wanna do that for this, project. We did that when we were doing some of the other larger infrastructure
Right.
projects, like the West Union Sewer and
Yeah.
Transmission Line, and then also, you know, some work on the MBTA access road. So we would like to do that
Okay.
again.
Seek
Do
alternative
we,
routes
do we have a
probably.
way of having people opt into those emails? Is there anything on our website?
You just go to notify me. It's right on the website. You can sign up for all different types of emails and opportunities to do that.
Can we get that posted on the Ashland Facebook page again? I mean, I
The-
know.
The
The
process.
notify me.
The
part-
process,
okay.
yes.
Great
If you
idea,
wanna be
yeah.
updated on these projects that are you know, go to our website and,
Even the Ashland Bulletin Board too on Facebook. They
Right,
do
that's
that,
what I
put
mean.
Some on that.
but if
very
we
active.
can
Brandy's
post it,
active on that, so.
if we post it on the Ashland page and then the Ashland, we can post it to different ones.
So I think a little bit of not so great news. So I've been working with Eversource on the design for the undergrounding of the utilities. That's taking a little bit longer than what we had anticipated. It's just, I'll just put it out there, it's frustrating.
Is that a pushback?
You know, I don't know if it's connected to anything.
What do you think?
It's, let's put it this way, and I'm sorry if I'm offending anybody from Eversource here. It's consistent with my experience with Eversource. So hopefully we'll get that soon, but we're really kind of holding off on going full bore on the streetscape design until that is all, finalize that until that's all accomplished.
Just a follow-up question to that. So we're gonna be doing the water main work, and then we'll have to go back and do the undergrounding of the,
Yeah, and then the
Utilities.
streetscaping work. So
okay,
the undergrounding of the utilities is gonna be a lot more
digging.
digging. So.
So
the-
that
the-
probably
the
won't
main
be
work-
starting as we do the water main work that we're
No,
starting?
no, it won't be starting
It'll be
as,
separate,
as
okay.
we're doing the water main.
Do
work.
we have an
because you're
estimate
ahead.
as,
Well, that's the thing, it's like.
do we have an estimate of how long the water main work will take?
Probably, so on Main Street, about a month and a half.
Okay.
And then we're gonna start the work on Summer Street as well. They're actually going to be, there's gonna be like an overlap period of about 2 weeks. What's gonna happen is we're starting to work on Summer Street at the intersection of Cherry. We're starting the Main Street work at the intersection of Water. They're gonna move forward and hopefully converge at Summer and Homer at some point, yeah, at the post office.
So the goal will be before school starts to have all this done?
That's the goal, Brandy.
Yeah, okay. Just asking for a friend.
That's the goal.
Wow.
Okay.
I don't have any real updates on the strategic plan. I just haven't had an opportunity to work on it.
Can I, not an update, but just a sort of something to think about? So MAPC has put out their Metro Common 2050.
Oh, yeah.
They've put out their.
Mini grants?
No, not mini
Oh.
grants. Their plan, so it's their plan to 2050.
Right.
So I would say that as you're working on our strategic plan, maybe if we could take a look at that, and if there's anything that can sort of work together, certainly net zero is something that they're looking at, and I know
Yeah.
that we
Good
should have
point.
that as part of our
Well,
strategic plan moving
By the time
forward.
we get it done, it'll be 2050.
Well,
I think
I'm
the way-
hoping it doesn't take us that long, so I would just say,
That's a good
let's,
point,
make sure that,
I agree.
it's
consistent.
not that our plan has to be matching theirs, but if there's stuff in their plan that we can tie on to, I think it would be good.
Yeah, I actually had a good meeting with Karen Edelman last
good.
week about that. It was really,
Good.
really good. Warren District. So a couple of things I want to just run through. So I think we had some discussion at our last meeting about declaring the Hall House surplus and what that meant. I think there was some misinformation out there that it meant that we were destroying the property or we're gonna give it to a private entity who was gonna tear it down and build something new. I hope that's all been clarified, and that is not the case. The purpose is to provide that property to a private contractor who can then restore it, put the historical deed restriction. In fact, the conveyance of the property will be dependent upon a historical deed restriction and still maintain it the way it is. It would just be a private residence. So just want to make sure everybody's on board with that. That's consistent with the plan we had in January, just because we have an RFP that we're putting out.
Oh.
So,
And that's going
So-
out when?
And
Sooner than later?
yeah.
Ed.
so, and it's not like this is not something that's been done. Framingham did it with one of their historic homes, so we have a model to look at for letting it become a private property, having it restored as a historic, and.
And putting the deed
and
restriction
Putting
on
the
it.
deed restriction on it, so. Okay.
Can I just, I mean, I think it's probably a sound plan. My only kind of concern about, we've got this whole kind of district with multiple structures and issues. I mean, should we think about having some sort of committee to deal with that as opposed to, right now it's kind of, we talk about it and, Dave's been assigned to work on it and stuff, and I think we're doing a lot of things there, but maybe looking at that whole Warren district, we ought to think about some kind of committee or amalgamation of committees, like the stewardship committee, and maybe there's others that are relevant to that. Just kind of take on these kind of issues like decisions, should this be a museum or we're gonna focus on 22 Elliott versus this house, that kind of stuff. Cause we gotta start thinking about that whole area and what the uses are, and maybe the Valentine Estate should be part of that whole thinking. I'm just thinking about ways, rather than us at these meetings coming up with things, like having a group of committee.
It's a good point, but I thought that we had determined that as part of this whole process with hiring this overseer, that there would be a number of public meetings that would be available for residents to provide.
Well, especially on the Valentine property, you approved a plan that was presented in January that called for 22 Elliott to be the museum, the Warren Barn to basically serve as a function area in conjunction with Framingham State, and then the Hall House to be a private residence put on the National Register. So we have moved forward with that plan, consistent with the vote that you wanted to do in January.
So it's really the Valentine property that would be subject to public hearings or public forums to
Yes, and
gather
that's-
ideas for uses.
And that's my next point. I think there is an opportunity to talk a little bit more about that with the Warren barn. So so that barn's been condemned. It will have to be removed. We have got we received bids today or proposals today for the reconstruction of a replica, just the shell of that. And then we're gonna have further conversations about what we need to do on the interior. Hopefully there's some opportunity to work with Framingham State as part of that. And, because they have the Warren house as well, so. And then the other thing, just with regards to the district, I mean, we've talked about that as being a historic district. We do need Framingham State's
Yeah.
okay in partnership as part of that, which I don't think is out of the question. But one of the things David and I talked about was, I mean, we're talking about districts through like the National Register or a local historic district which has a formal property. There's nothing that prevents us from creating our own district through a bylaw or something to that effect. So we might see that at the fall town meeting as well.
Didn't Midway
yeah.
do something like that with that building that they reconstructed? I think they did their own bylaw in respect to that.
So just to follow up, so one thing that reminded me, talked to Dale, the A&F guy for him. So did he mention this about the dog park idea? I hate to-
We
okay.
talked about it last
So,
week,
yeah.
last meeting, yeah.
Oh, he did, okay.
Yeah.
So, that's interesting. But also, they own the workshop or barn. Do we have a
Yes.
name for it behind? What do-
the Hall House.
Yeah, what do we call that? Do
The
we-
barn.
The barn. But that's where the electric clock was probably actually invented, probably along with a bunch of Henry Warren's other stuff, and it's owned by Framingham State. So, to go to your point, working with them, I think is very important. That's where this kind of, maybe some sort of committee or working group or something that can kind of tie all this stuff together, I think
Well,
would be.
to that
useful.
point, not to belabor the issue, but I mean, there's a couple of outstanding things that need to, I think that are still being worked on and potentially would need to be resolved in conjunction with Framingham State. One's the dog park issue.
Yeah.
One's this, how to work, how does this Warren barn fit into everybody's plan? So maybe there's a working group as
And
part of that.
I know at one point we had a conversation about a memorandum of understanding
Mm-hmm.
with Framingham State, and to my knowledge, we haven't
We have not
finalized
done that.
anything.
No.
And we know that they're using 22 Elliott Street for certain things from Framingham State. We know that things are going on, so I think to Rob's point, maybe not a full committee and maybe not a full-blown, but certainly we need to finalize working with Framingham State to get that memorandum of understanding in regards to how we're gonna work together to do all these great ideas.
Yeah, I think maybe a working group that could work on that as well.
And maybe see if DCR is interested, because they kind of have a stake in there as well.
Well, I think there's a critical mass from my conversations with Dale Hamill regarding the dog park.
dogs.
So I had suggested to him that, the town has been immersed, there's been a committee, and so my suggestion at this point is that because Yolanda has been active with the dog park
Right.
committee,
teacher.
is that, we assign her
Sure.
the role of interacting when
Right,
it gets
so-
to that point, so
we
that.
do that when she's not available, so that way she.
That's
can't-
exactly, that's how we do it.
But I
I'd
think,
be-
in
yeah,
order to
I'd be
move it
happy to do
forward, I
that.
think and he's very amenable to that. It makes
Yeah.
perfect sense.
They're ready to
and,
go,
So I
yeah.
think
so,
if
yeah.
you could do an introduction, I mean, I know Dale, but as an official, as town manager, because you've talked to him, and then we can start seeing how we decide, because the dog park committee is raising funds, we're looking to start applying for grants for engineering. The current discussion for a dog park is off of the MBTA access road near the, to tie into the trail that's going on there. So if there's something else that we could be looking at that may let it happen sooner, it would be good to
Yeah,
know
you
that.
definitely
That
should
happens
start
Yeah.
communicating
Yeah.
soon. I
Yeah.
think
Especially if those funds-
they're frustrated.
Well, that's the idea.
Yeah.
Frustrated with just the amount of dogs that are really unattended that have created some chaos at various weddings
Yeah,
and
did they
sporting
have-
events.
They had one last week.
So-
So I just want to be clear though that we're okay with moving forward with the Hall House.
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
I'd rather it was part of a bigger plan, but.
It was a bigger plan.
Right, but
But it
it's
was.
just a little more process, but I know what you're saying, so.
Okay.
Especially since we're gonna keep it structurally sound and
Right.
in the barn, I think we ought to think about that being the focus as well, so.
You mean the Warren barn, the milking barn?
No,
Not
I mean the
back
barn behind,
The barn that
the barn
Framingham
behind the
State
house.
owns.
Okay.
That they utilize for all their equipment.
Yeah, well, that's,
Okay.
And I did mention that we do have the bids for, or we did get the bids for the architect for the reconstruction of the
Yes.
milking barn. Okay.
yeah.
So we are looking at July 22nd as a forum for the Valentine property, a public forum. Be held at the community center. David Foster will lead us in a presentation documenting what has been done so far at the Valentine property in terms of, stabilizing that property and cleaning it up
And the landscaping?
and the
So
landscaping,
did you say the 22nd?
the 22nd
Sorry.
of July. And then also talking about some of the potential ideas that have come about for future use of the property,
Right.
and then having a further conversation about that.
July 22nd, what time?
7 p.m.
7 p.m.?
At the community center. Okay, good. That's good.
So see more about that, but
Yeah.
we just finalized that this week. So we're looking forward to that. We're looking forward to, I think there's been some ideas that have already been generated through the public. We certainly heard that at the forum, I think, back in October. I think it'll be interesting to see what he has come up with in terms of some of those ideas and extrapolating on it, and then hearing people's response to that and even new ideas.
Very good.
So,
Good.
excited about that.
All right. What else, Mr. Town Manager?
That's it.
That's it? Okay, next item on the agenda is our consent agenda. It's listed on the screen, and I'll entertain a motion to approve.
I move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Just one quick question on that, Mr. Chair. Michael Snyder, Ashland Police Department.
Does he have tattoos?
Police officer or dispatcher?
Mr. Snyder will be a police officer.
Very
Okay.
good.
So, and actually, well, I'm glad Jen's not here. I'm gonna blow up the consent agenda, I guess. Just wanna let you know. Ashley, do you wanna go ahead and vote on it?
Yeah,
And
let's
then
vote,
I'll-
Yeah,
and then
let's
we
vote.
can comment on it, all right? So we've got a motion. Do we hear a
I'll
second?
second it.
Got a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? And that carries 5-0. So if you want to talk about
Yeah, I think at
Mr.
our next
Snyder?
meeting in July, what I would like to do is I would like to bring in the police officers and the firefighters that we've hired
Well, yeah,
since
That
the
would be
beginning of the
great.
year,
Good idea.
and just introduce them to the
Yeah.
community.
That would be perfect.
We were talking about that before Craig left, and then Craig left, so.
Yeah, that'd be great.
That's good.
Okay.
So
All
has he
right.
gone through the police academy already and stuff?
He's a lateral,
He's a lateral, nice.
he's a lateral.
Good.
So he's jumping right
Saves us
in.
money.
All right, so we're into
Like
old,
those.
new business at this point, and our first item is to approve the memorandum of agreement between the Ashland Police Union and the town of Ashland for fiscal years 18 through 21. Michael?
Now, I think we covered some of this before, but it's the third out of the 4 collective bargaining agreements that we've completed this year. Just for the public, just to let you know some of the highlights, consists of a 5% COLA adjustment over a 3-year period. It also includes a 1% adjustment based on the acceptance of the employee handbook, and then also a 1% merit stipend for the achievement of receiving certification, the department receiving certification. So those are the highlights, I think.
Question, comment?
Yes? go ahead.
So, this is from July 1, 2018, so even though there was no contract basically in place, they were following the rules of the previous contract for the last year. And so now that this is in place, any monies that were owed them from July 1 of last year to now will be paid
retro.
retroactively.
Yeah.
Okay, any other discussion on this?
Nope.
And do we need a,
Thanks, Michael, for,
Yes, thank you.
negotiating this.
I move that we approve the memorandum of agreement between the Ashland Police Union and the town of Ashland.
second? Do I hear a second?
Second. I'll
Okay,
second it.
so we've got motion second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? And that carries 5-0. Next item on our agenda is Eversource, update, status of briefings filed under docket EFSB 18-02. So, I do know, I didn't check the docket this morning. I know there was has been some subsequent activity of postings. But the Eversource reply brief is due tomorrow, I believe.
Thursday, correct.
Right, the 20th, and then they're also scheduled to appear before Concom on Monday, the 24th. And that's been
Yes.
confirmed.
That has been confirmed, yes. I know there's been some issues where it's been continued, kind of at the last minute,
Right.
but it has been confirmed. We actually got comments from our peer reviewer, or Conservation Commission got comments from their peer reviewer, and I think that's gonna be discussed
Very
on
good.
Monday.
Yeah.
But I think, I hope everybody's had a chance to read the reply brief. I want to take a moment and just thank everybody that worked on the documentation that we utilized, I think extensively and referenced and attached as part of our reply brief. I think it was very comprehensive. I have noticed, I don't know if you've been able to check the docket website, it's starting to attract interest from organizations outside of Metro West.
Yeah,
I think
that's right, the
recently Berkshire
yeah, I saw
Environmental
that,
Action
yeah.
Team sent something.
Yeah, and it was interesting also, there was an inclusion of a letter from the siting board to Eversource, reminding them that they owed they had promised a stormwater plan back at the beginning of the year, and now it's first quarter, we're coming into third quarter, they still haven't received it, so, that was added on recently as well, so.
One thing I do want to ask the board's guidance on is, so we did receive the peer review report. In my opinion, it highlighted or reinforced, I think, some of the things that we said in terms of lack of information or inaccurate information. If you want, I'd be happy to draft something from myself or on behalf of the board to the siting board, referencing that document as just further reinforcement
Sure.
of some of the points
Sounds
that we
good.
made in
Absolutely.
the earlier letter.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
So I have you meant the reply, I read the reply brief and I thought it was very well stated, summarized our positions very well. And I think it's, I think it'd be a good idea to forward that formally to our elected representatives and the governor, with, maybe with a cover letter from the chair saying endorsing the report and saying, please, with some kind of request, for your either, a statement saying, we asked for your support in our position. We've asked Eversource we've asked the Energy Facility Siting Board to not approve the application, and we'd ask for your support. Just a simple letter, and send them report to Representative Lewis and Senator Spilka and the governor as well, because, so the FSB, so we could at least give them some support if they, hopefully don't approve this.
Okay.
We can talk
Yeah,
tomorrow.
definitely do
Yeah,
that.
Yeah.
so I don't know if we
Okay.
need a vote on
That's
that
what-
or if you're just
No, we
helping
can,
do it.
we can
Okay,
take care of that.
great, thank you.
Okay. Any other discussion on Eversource at this point? We can move on to,
Steve.
Diane. Hi, how are you? All right.
Diane Ring, 42 Bay Colony Drive, speaking for myself. I brought a visual aid. This is a Venn diagram. And
What is it?
this
It's a
is
Venn
called a,
diagram.
Michael taught me
diagram.
about this. It's a Venn diagram in which two circles overlap and there's sort of a common area in between. And I would like to acknowledge and thank the board for increasing the size of this overlap. It has really grown in terms of things that I perceive the residents to feel and things that I have read that the board opposes. So I think there's more common ground. I really want to thank you for listening to those concerns. I have a process question. So you guys went out and got this intervenor status, which is great because you can advocate on our behalf, if I understand it right. So now that the reply brief the final brief is done from the town, Eversource does theirs. Do you get any, do you foresee any opportunities to have more input after that, before the siting board vote?
I do believe there will be opportunity for public comment when the siting board actually makes their decision. So, and they have essentially their hearing. I mean, the people that we discussed with the siting board, they actually make recommendations to the full siting board for the decision.
Do they close the docket as of the, let's say, the 20th, when the reply brief is due?
I don't know.
I actually asked Donna Sharkey about that.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt, but she said that they accept public comment up until the day of the vote. And
Okay.
then that's even after, I guess there's like some sort of a decision, I forget what they called it, that ends up being voted on, that's released before the vote. So even after that is out, public comment is accepted, but I just didn't know if you had any sort of formal role before the vote.
I don't
You'd
think
have-
there's
We'd have
a.
to ask our counsel on that.
Yeah, I don't think there's a formal role. I do think there's a role to play once the decision is issued.
Right.
And we need to make a decision.
Very good.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Diane. You've
Thanks,
been
Diane,
very,
for your
I want to
support.
comment, Diane, you've been very supportive and complimentary of our process as well, so I think we all appreciate that.
All in this together.
Just, do we know the date of the vote? Has that been?
No,
No, we
Donna's
don't.
indicated fall at the earliest, and
Fall
said
at
that
the
that's
earliest, so it's
highly
not a
unlikely.
formal.
You know, you brought up a good point. The last day, if Eversource hasn't provided the siting board the information that they have requested, going back to, the first quarter, and it's near the end, how does that affect, it has to have some sort of bearing, I
Yeah,
would
it
think.
seemed like
I
it
would
was a
hope.
little slap on the wrist more than anything else. I didn't interpret it as, I think,
Something major. Okay.
Who
Well,
knows?
You know, it's also one of those things, knowing Eversource, they're a big company. If this project's at risk, they might not be willing to spend the money to do the stormwater analysis or the stormwater. I'm just saying that that's a possibility, so.
Just because they're that big of an organization
No, I-
doesn't mean that they can't follow the rules and regulations.
No, I understand that, Joe. I'm just saying that,
Okay. Mark, I'll give you a
That's
minute,
just my-
please.
That's my editorial for the night.
Mark, we'll give you 1 minute.
Okay, through the chairman to Mr. Town Manager. How much did my Eversource update have to help what's going on now?
I think it was very informative, Mark. I thought it was very concise and succinct and was a really good overview of everything that's happened.
And everything that I put out there, the two towns get in touch with each other to formulate?
I have not received any correspondence directly from Hopkinton and Hopkinton's leadership on this.
Okay?
And I don't expect that on this one.
I'm not, this is not Kansas anymore, but then again, in something like this, it's breaking town borders. And that's what the show was about. And I would like to thank Mr. Town Manager for responding. And I have now off the program, but then again, the 24th, this coming Monday, I just have to come up with something that is all sides for all reasons.
Great. Thank you, Mark. Okay, moving on, we have our next item is to sign the notes for the borrowing approved at town meeting in the amount of $5,211,000, which includes $3 million land acquisition, dash rail transit, let's say rail transit district, $711,000 for school modulars, and $1,500,000 for water utilities upgrade. So,
So all of this is related to that.
to that borrowing.
So this is basically an adjunct to what you voted on at the last meeting in terms of the useful life. After that was done, we were able to go out and issue notes. So these aren't full bonds. These are called bond anticipation notes for a full borrowing for 3 projects which are noted. One is $3 million for the Rail Transit District property. The reason we did $3 million is because, if you remember, $3 million was in a bond bill, the Economic Development Bond Bill. So until we get official word on that, we need to go ahead and borrow it and hopefully get some good news. Then the Warren School modulars and the pumper truck. So I think,
It's just the clerk, right?
yeah, it's, just wanted to let you know, got a good interest rate, 2.25%, so not too bad. These are essentially year-long notes, so they're not, super. But we could have a vote to approve these. Yeah,
Oh, is everybody has to sign? Okay.
yes.
I'm,
Any discussion before we vote? Any further
take it back.
discussion? Rob? No? You've poured over the.
Oh, yeah, in detail. I
analysis?
got,
Okay.
there was
Very
a
good.
comma misplaced on one of them.
You ready, Brandon?
All
I'm
right,
good.
so
Okay.
I will entertain a motion at this time.
I move that we, as a board, sign the notes as presented. Because it's everybody, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Right, a motion and second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, and that is 5-0. So, thank you. And we are on now to town manager reports.
Okay. First, I want to give you an update on the excise tax bill and the demand fees issues that came up at the last meeting. Both Cindy and I did have some extensive conversations with treasurer collectors around the state and how they handle these issues, but then more importantly, we got further clarification from the state, who were very definitive in their answer that we could not waive anything that was over $15. So I've passed along that news to some of the interested parties and aggrieved parties. So I think the next step is how do we keep this from happening in the future? Again, I don't want to make it sound like this was any different than any previous year. The numbers bear out that this is a consistent issue. We're going to include a mailing as part of the next billing, whether it's the water billing or the real estate bills, that encourage people to sign up for electronic billing notification. So they will have the opportunity to receive both a paper bill and then also an email notifying them when a bill is due, and then also give them the opportunity to pay that way. We'll also do, Cindy actually has done a pretty good job, I think, of putting it on the website when bills are due and actually on Facebook. Unfortunately, she takes it down afterwards. She's even used the message boards sometimes. Actually, I was a little didn't know if that was the best idea when I first saw that. Now I think it's a very good idea that we continue to do that. Yeah. And then also I want to look at the potential of reducing the fee, the demand fee, from
Yeah.
$30 to $15.
Yeah.
So that would mean about a $30,000 decrease in revenue for us, but it would also give us the a little bit more flexibility, or would give Cindy a little bit more flexibility
To waive them if
to
necessary.
waive them. And it doesn't mean that if you have a demand fee and you say, like, you didn't get it in the mail, that she would waive it. I think there's gonna be a process that she utilizes. I think she will look at payment history, and, see if people have consistently paid on time, and this is obviously an
That's
anomaly.
just one year they didn't,
Right.
yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
that's
So-
given that kind of
so-
discretion.
Just wanted to give you an update on that.
No, that's good, I
Are
think
we
it's.
also going, sorry,
No.
Steve, it's okay.
All right, that at the same time. Go ahead.
Yep. Are we also going to make sure we let people know again about how to get them emailed to them, and so that people, if they're concerned?
Yeah, so that's the billing, that's
Okay.
the insert that we're gonna put as
Okay,
part of the next
perfect.
billing.
Thank you.
That gives them instructions on how to do that and why it's important.
Could you make an announcement on your sheet?
Yes,
too?
I will.
Okay.
So-
Yeah, so I just wanted to, it's, I think we should move it to the 15, and I appreciate your efforts to kind of fix this. It's unfortunate we can't make folks whole, because, we pay a lot, we get a lot from the town, and we pay a lot. So, the more we can do to help our customers and our residents, pay their bills and be cognizant of the issues they're always going through, I think the more we can do, the
Yeah.
better.
And that's a good point, and then I'll hand it over to you, Brandy. But we did talk at our last meeting about kind of the customer service component here, and, how we address this at the desk, at the front line. So, you know, hopefully that's part of this, improving this process.
Yeah, I think, you know,
I don't want to make any assumptions, but, you know,
Oh.
it's,
I had heard, let's put it this way, I've heard from several people, I've discussed this with a lot of people who had demand fees, and I do feel, a lot of them said, well, if I had known this and stuff, I probably wouldn't have made as big a deal out of it, because they weren't feeling like they were being heard at the time. And I think that was the most frustrating thing, more than the demand fees.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
we just need to make sure, and everybody needs to make sure that people are being treated respectfully.
Sure.
and-
Brandy?
I was just, you had mentioned, and I think I just wanted to clarify that all the folks that had come forward with issues specifically around this, you had circled back with, and they feel like they've closed that loop.
There's still some outstanding people. I'm still going through the list, but I'm getting in touch with them. Yeah.
Okay.
Good, thank you.
Whether it was the farmer's market or email or phone call. So,
Okay, great, thanks.
all right. So update on the municipal aggregation program. So these next two items, they kind of go, or actually this and the sustainability coordinator go together. I just want to let everybody know that Eversource is changing their rate for the next 6-month period starting in July. It's actually going to be a little bit less than what the town's aggregation rate is going to be. Now, the key difference though is that ours is sourced by 100% renewables. And we would be we're putting an adder on that to help fund a sustainability position as well. The difference is not great. It comes out to 0.00211 cents. But I do want to make people aware, they do have the opportunity to opt out
Right.
Of
our
the aggregate
aggregation
program and go back to Eversource.
And we'll have, as part of this, we'll have more documentation that goes out. Colonial Power, who works with us on this.
Do you know that what's behind the, so this is the what do they call it, the standard rate or something, or the
Yeah,
default
a
rate?
lot of it's supply and demand, in very futures based. You know,
And
they're,
if people do opt to go back, is there some, but there are some other implications to that, right? Do they just sit there and, you know, they
Well,
can come
if-
back at any time, or?
they can come back at any time. The thing is, you've got to be aware of that.
Yeah,
I will go on record.
Our
I
electric
think
rate, not
it's,
our gas rate.
it's a solid guarantee that we'll be significantly under again for the next 6-month period
Yeah.
as we go
Come
into
the
the
winter.
winter season.
yeah, okay.
So if you do opt out, you have to remember to opt in, back
Yeah.
in again.
Right,
So,
all right, thanks, Michael.
Or you can stay with our rate and
support
Yeah.
renewables.
support renewables
That's
and
right.
our sustainability.
So when does the add-on for the sustainability coordinator go into effect?
It should start in August,
Okay.
so we'll have more information about that as well. There's a process that we have to initiate, that
Okay.
we've already started initiating with Colonial Power, and a few forms that we have to fill out.
Can-
And then we'll start, I guess, notifying people what's happening, what the change is.
Okay, could we do something as a town to kind of promote what that sustainability coordinator is going to do and how that's going to, you know, I think we need to do a little bit of PR on that, so people aren't just seeing a line item on their bills, you know, because I think it's a really good thing for the town to do. I think we need to just make sure people are aware of what that's going to mean for Ashland.
Yeah, I just want to be, they're not going to see like sustainability coordinator
No,
adder,
but
but I think,
they'll see a probably a line on their.
On their energy bill? I don't
I'm not
think
sure they
so.
will.
no, it'll
Yeah.
just say, but I
Yeah.
think your point is well
That's a good
taken.
point, yeah.
We should definitely say this is what's happening, this is gonna be
Right.
the change in
Among
your
the
aggregation, in your bill, even if you stay with us, and this is why.
Yeah.
So,
And we'll get that person to work right away too, so that's good.
next year,
Next year.
exactly.
good.
So,
It's fiscal year.
Yeah, next year.
In less than a month.
Okay,
Were you gonna talk more about it? Cause
no,
so we got that
I was gonna
email.
talk about the sustainability coordinator.
That's what I
adder.
mean, yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about that
Yeah.
later. So the next, just the Stormwater Enterprise Fund, again, that's just letting you know that we're gonna be sending out some documentation, letting people know about the fee, the new stormwater fee, be expecting it on their bill, all that good stuff.
When will they see that on their bill?
The next billing that comes out is
The
due
next
August.
water
Yeah.
bill.
So I think Rob and the Stormwater Advisory Committee, they've put together a lot of information.
They
a
did
lot.
put a lot, and again, I think it's important to give them kudos for the amount of effort and work that they put in. And I know we've seen a couple drafts of notifications, but from the Stormwater Committee. But I think you've taken that on as a staff function to put out a communication.
Yeah.
So, but again, I think they've done a tremendous amount of work and to get us to this point. So.
Quick question. So we were talking about the whole notify me process on the website where people can opt into emails. Could we maybe use that as a way to talk about, to have another way to notify people about the stormwater fees on their water bills and things like that as well?
I would think that once you have your statement written, we can send that out via
Yeah.
that email.
Yeah,
I
you-
mean, anything
could
like that should be
probably-
going out through that email.
Yeah, do that email, and then so probably put it up on the website too.
Yeah, post it on
Post it
the
website
websites. Yeah.
Yep.
And on social media too.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay.
All right, sustainability coordinator. So I had asked the sustainability committee to review some job descriptions, put together what they thought was important as part of this role, and they met on Monday. So they put something together. Matt was here earlier.
Yeah, but I think
he
Karen
snuck-
would like to make some comments. Oh, no? Okay.
So,
Sorry, you're too
You're
close,
welcome
you
to
have
make
to
some
talk.
comments if you like.
so, but Matt did correspond with me. I guess you did
Great.
have a conversation on Monday night, so that's good. I'm gonna review that. Also review some job descriptions as well. Look at what we need from a staff perspective, and then we'll be advertising that.
Right.
Probably, I would say July. Like the sustainability committee has requested, and I actually think this is a good idea that they have a member sit in on interviews. I don't think
Sure,
that's a bad idea.
Yeah, good.
So,
And where will you be posting that job, Michael?
and where we post it all the
All
time
jobs, okay.
on the town website, on we use a company called Clear Company that sends the resume in. For this one, we'll probably utilize the MMA website. I don't know if we'll use Indeed, but the way we do every single position in town of Ashland
And it just hasn't gone up yet.
just has not gone up.
And how is recruiting is recruiting still difficult? What's your feeling out there when you're posting things? We're able to
So-
get some folks, so.
We haven't done a sustainability coordinator, so it would be, I don't know about that one.
Right. Yeah.
The market for finance people, planners, and town managers is very
Same.
thin.
Yeah.
So
Interesting.
it's hopefully that doesn't apply with sustainability coordinators.
Yeah.
So other towns are gonna be advertising, cause Holliston and Sherborne did their joint one, so.
Yep. And then the next thing is exercise, a grant on exercise equipment. I'm actually going to have Susan speak to that, just because she was instrumental in putting it all
Yeah,
together.
super.
Okay, basically, we have some exercise equipment that we filed for a grant on. The grant was actually offered through our insurance company. So Michael and Jen actually helped me to draft the grant. It's some equipment that's going to go in the field behind the community center, on the far end of it. So the part of the field that's furthest from the building. And it's gonna be a course that's primarily set up, I guess, for adults, although anyone can use it, and then another one that's geared to a little bit younger personnel, I guess. And basically, the thought behind it is a lot of people go up there, they utilize the walking trail, and we thought by having so many kids go up and use the fields for sports, and the parents are up there and the kids are either playing in the playground or they're walking the trail, it provides them another opportunity to work out while their kids are working out. So we were able to get a grant of just under $38,000 towards that, and then we have some money in the recreation department as well that's gonna go towards it. And the way we got the money was by doing training, implementing a lot of policies and regulations through the town and the employees, and capture some money from our insurance company as a benefit.
Yeah, super.
That's great.
So I have a question on looking at the equipment sheet here, and it says 13+ years. So signage or disclaimers or things of notification for little guys and girls might be going over there. How will we police that?
There will be signage. There's gonna be plaques that come on the equipment as well, but certainly just like in a playground, I mean, some of it you would hope that the parents are gonna be responsible. It's not equipment that necessarily can't be used by younger people, but you may have footprints that are made for longer legs,
Okay.
is basically what the
And
company
again, you're
said.
right, we would hope that parents would supervise, but that,
Right.
we know that doesn't always happen, so,
Right,
how
but
do
certainly we could put up plaques saying
Okay.
that you're
Yeah, I think it'd be a
using,
good idea
that you're using the
Your
things
own
at your
risk.
own risk, yes.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I think that's a good suggestion.
Yeah.
So,
Question?
Yolanda?
So when is the timing? When is this going to be installed?
So right now, we're waiting to get a lot of that back from the vendor. We
Okay.
had them quote out with a couple different surfaces underneath.
Okay.
So once we get that and we decide on how we're going to move forward, then we'll come up with the timeline.
Okay. If you could let us know, because I think it would be great to do a story on it.
Sure.
Once it's there, or when it's being put in place to talk to people and share it that way.
And camp may play into when the
When they
company
do it.
can
Okay.
get in.
Brandy?
So I think it's great. I think it's fantastic. Quick question. Has anyone, I know that Ashland Youth Soccer uses that space quite extensively, because I've had a kid go through.
So they are aware of it,
Okay,
and that's
that
how
was my
we
question.
helped to determine the area and how wide we could go, was based on what their needs are. We didn't want to impact the space that they rent.
Okay,
yeah, we don't
perfect.
mess with Ashland Youth Soccer.
I completely agree. You know, they're powerful people.
Or youth baseball.
Yes.
so.
Yes.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Just,
Thank
did you guys consider Stone Park or other locations, like what, because it's further, this is further from my house than Stone Park.
We
No, but
did,
Get on your
what we
bike
tried to
and
do is,
That's true, I could do that.
we
But,
tried to capture an area that was already being used for it and just enhance what we already had.
Right.
And the walking trail gets used by so many different
Oh, I see.
groups, and it has a younger playground for younger kids. So we thought that it was a great location, not to say that we couldn't expand it and maybe add things if we can get a grant again and maybe add something to other parts of town, but right now, that's our focus is there.
So you're just gonna have to bicycle
yeah, I know, I
over
guess,
there. There you
yeah,
go.
it's a little more of a workout, I guess.
Very good. Any other?
Yeah, I had 3 other items. So first was, I mentioned that we had a Mendez School Building Committee meeting last night.
Right.
That was to get some feedback from members of the committee on the designers that had submitted submissions to do the work and the feasibility study. Jim, Paul, Kendall, and I will be going into Boston on July 9th to be part of that whole panel, which includes a number of other MSBA representatives to help select that designer. So that's moving along. I also want to let you know, if you remember 3 years ago, we did what was known as the National Citizen Survey. Very extensive survey.
Yes.
It took a long time to complete, but the information we got from it was absolutely invaluable, and I think really helped us kind of shape what we have done, I think, over the last 3 years. We're going to be doing an update to that. We're
Super.
going to be doing an additional survey.
Yeah.
It's probably going to happen at the end of the summer or early fall, but I just want people to be on the lookout for
Yeah,
that.
and
Or starting to be.
encourage residents to partake in this and just reflect back on the percentage of people or households that responded was particularly high with this survey.
Yeah, it was over 30%, which was extremely high for this type of survey, and it just meant the data was a lot more accurate.
Right.
Just a quick question. So it doesn't go out to everybody, the survey. It goes out to select households. If someone isn't selected, is there any way that they can still participate?
Yes, you can actually still do the survey. We can send you a link to the website. It will be kept separate from
the other data.
Isolated scientific
Okay.
sample that's been sent out. But people would still have the opportunity.
It's sent out
to provide
random, it's not.
It is
We
random.
don't
Right.
select households, we
No, they just randomly
yes,
send it,
yes.
yeah.
Yeah, we have no influence as to where it gets sent and who it gets sent to.
So if you get sent, please respond.
Yes. So,
Good.
Can I just,
and the old survey, I mean, it's 2016, is still available on the website, so you can get a look at what
What was asked?
kind of data,
Okay.
everything.
What else?
The last thing is the Riverwalk project. Unfortunately, Roberta is not here. We did get bids in. Third time was the charm for our bids. So
great.
we're just checking the references on that, but hopefully we changed the scope a little bit. We're going to have DPW do a little work and changed a few things around and seem to have worked. So
Very
should
good.
definitely get that done over the summer. Yeah, EPA's been on board.
Yep. Rob?
That just, your talk about the survey reminded, so, and I went through, at the Grafton Commuter Rail Station, they have a big placard where you can, I guess, use your smartphone to complete or get access to a survey. It's about the use of the rail station. It's done by the town of Grafton, not the T. And they want to do some transit-oriented development there, and so they're asking for people's input. But it also strikes me that we could do something similar and maybe ask people at our station, like, other questions, like, where are you coming from? Why are you here? Like, how do you use the T? What are you looking for? Things like, I'd like to know, like, who are the people using our station?
Yeah.
You know, so, you know, just kind of, there's a thought we could do a survey like that, you
Okay.
know?
Are you volunteering to do that?
Sure, well, I'm not gonna do the survey, I'll
That's-
do the little placard.
Well, maybe reach
It's
out
a-
to Grafton
Yeah,
about
sure.
how they did it and, you
Yeah.
know, how they created
Yeah,
it.
Yeah,
find some,
I'll be
get
happy
some
to do that,
information.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's great. See
Yeah,
how
because
they
that's
do it.
actually, commuter rail is on my
Good.
board report.
Sure,
So,
well, I was gonna do something too.
Uh,
Yeah,
so-
very good.
Michael, you're all set with, okay, so now we move on to board reports. And I'll start with Brandy this evening.
Okay. So a couple of things. On June 8th, I attended the MMA, Massachusetts Selectmen's Association, meeting in Sharon, which was great. They had a whole tract, they had some really good panels on just general discussion. One thing that was interesting was that a lot of towns are talking about changing their name. So if they haven't, they're talking about ways to do that. So I think I think we're right in line with what other towns are doing. They also had a tract basically for new select board members, which, so I attended one on like Finance 101, which was good. And also, on open meeting law, because, you know, that's a good one. It's exciting. It's exciting.
Now, you learned how to violate it, right?
Get some pointers?
I have lots of pointers and things to look for, so it's all good. Also, I did we were talking about the rail transit district, the walkthrough with the residents of Apple Ridge. That was on June 9th, so I was the representative for that walkthrough. And I will plan to be there Friday,
So am I.
yeah, for the balloon test. I think it's a good thing
Yep.
to be a part of. I was also thinking, it's probably good, I know that Tom is gonna be there in front of the planning board on the 27th. I don't know sort of what the general feel is for having somebody from the select board attend that planning board.
Anybody can go to those meetings.
Yes.
Because I will probably, I'm interested to go and just observe, not really speak on behalf of the board, but just really observe. Let's see, also on the 9th, I was part of the Friends of the Upper Charles Trail, the Dyke Trail Walk, which was great. And other than that, I think that's pretty much it. Just as a reminder, school's out. Monday was the last day of school, so kids are
Sounds like a
out and
song.
about. It's summer, so.
Summertime.
Summer, that's all I got.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Rob?
Thanks. You mentioned the Dyke Trail Walk. I have to say that it really is getting exciting because they mentioned a little bit about Sherburne, the Holliston line. It goes to the Sherburne line and ends, but actually the rail bed is still there, and you can actually just keep going. And if I was there a couple weeks ago, and the end of it is flooded, but if it wasn't, you could go right to what is it, Maples? What's the street there? It's a continuation of Elliott Street.
Right, I think it's Maple.
Maple.
Yeah, Maple, And from there, you're there at the rail line in just a few hundred yards, which they now got control. It's just another few hundred yards, you get to the Ashland property and the town, and where the town already has the property. So we're very close to connecting that dike trail to something. So anyway, so that's exciting. So I did want to, I went to Professor Hoffman's prayer stone talk. So most of us know Curtis Hoffman is a longtime Ashland resident. He's published a book called Prayers in Stone, or Stone Prayers. It's about all these stone structures we see in the woods. In his case, very well researched and scientifically strong, it seems to me, is that many of these are sacred structures built by Native Americans, and Ashland, the town forest, and the state park are hotbeds of these things. And I don't know if people had the opportunity to go on his tour last year in the town forest. It really is extraordinary. And so I just wanted to, recognize that presentation he did. And really, it's very Ashland's very involved. These structures are up and down the eastern seaboard. There's thousands of them. Where it kind of involves us is that, we may be in a position where we may have to make efforts to protect some of these structures and see them as historical archaeology and not just random piles of stones, which some of them are random piles of stone, but others are distinct structures. So, and if you remember, Curtis did come in and made a comment, because the pipeline actually affects, apparently there's some of them that it could affect. So anyway, that was a great presentation. I hope he's able to do it again, and that his book at least is at the library so people could look at it. So thanks for Professor Hoffman for his involvement in this well-researched thing. I did want to note, I've registered for the MAPC Climate Zoning webinar. I don't know if other people saw that.
Yeah.
So I think the great thing about that is it's a very topical. It's about climate change and zoning, I believe. But it's a webinar, so people like me can actually register and go there. So I was great
sit at home and watch
yeah.
her at work, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's I think that's next Tuesday. And the other thing, I've been bothering Mike and other people, sending emails about this last mile transit funding that I think DOT has put out, and I mentioned this to Joe as well, because I think, and Michael, I don't know if we have anything. So there's some kind of initiative from DOT about last mile transit, which of course the last mile is how do people get to work or home from, say, the train station or public or mass transit. And so there's some grants, and we've been looking at vans and things like that. So I don't know if we have something close to home that we'd like to do, but when I read that, it occurred to me that it really, it's really Legacy Farms is like this small town growing up with thousands of people, and it really is in our interest, and as well as Hopkins, of course, to look at that last mile transit rather than these folks from Legacy Farms. How are they getting into the train station? Well, they may be coming through Ashland. I'm not sure. That's where the survey comes in. But, we either, as three towns, Southborough's involved as well, Southborough, Hopkins, and Ashland, maybe look at this, have a coordinated approach to getting people to the commuter rail, whether it's Southborough, Ashland, or even Framingham, in this kind of last mile, and getting some of the traffic off our roads and off our back roads from Legacy Farms. So I've been thinking, just thought about that. And I noticed just kind of like for example, Southborough, there's a couple corporate vans that show up and pick up people in the morning. So there's like 15, 20 people. It's not huge numbers, but they go off, and I think they're going to places like Dell or 990 and places. So we should be, be good if we can look at that kind of thing. And Michael, I don't know if you had a response to that or.
Well, actually, we, Ed Berman and I had worked on a shuttle situation with the Metro West Regional Transit Authority for Legacy Farms specifically.
Great.
So they've actually implemented something where they're taking people up to the train station from Legacy Farms as a shuttle. But that's the extent of it right now, but I certainly think it's something that we could look into.
Be more and more critical.
126 is actually, I think, the prime candidate for more of a shuttle type service, taking people from the corridor actually to Framingham train station.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you. That's, I think
That's
that's
it.
all for me,
Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Good. Yolanda?
So today I was in Boston for the MAPC Executive Committee meeting. We talked about some of the legislative updates that are going on. The budget, I guess, is very, very close. It's in committee, but they're expecting it to be done on time. And they are not expecting to have to vote a 1/12 budget, which they've done before for July, so that's a good thing. Also, we heard an update about their MetroCom in 2050, which I mentioned, so I think we want to be aware of that. Next Thursday morning from 8 to 10 here at Ashland Town Hall is the Metro West Regional Collaborative meeting. We are actually reviewing our regional work plan, but we're also having a discussion about housing for seniors and how to keep them in our town when they're ready to sell their single-family homes. But what I'm gonna suggest, this last mile grant, I'm gonna bring it up at that meeting, because I certainly think in collaboration with the region, if there's something we can do, as you said, Framingham, Holliston, Southborough, and Ashland are all part of that collaborative. Hopkinton is not, but I think we can reach out through the sub-region,
Yeah, great.
because that's always a discussion, is traffic and impacts and stuff
Yes.
like that.
So what was the date again on that, in time?
Next Thursday morning from 8 to 10, the Metro West Regional Collaborative meeting.
8 to 10,
Yep,
Town
and
Hall?
here in Town Hall,
Okay.
yes.
Any breakfast involved?
Coffee and donuts.
Well,
Munchkins.
something.
Not much, but,
Coffee's good.
yep. And then congratulations to our farmers market. They've had 2 Saturdays already, and always a fun thing to go to, and so congratulations on that. And then on Sunday the 9th, instead of doing the walk, I was over at the Outdoor YMCA Center for the Metro West K9 5K, which was a fun event. I did not run it or walk it. I was there in support of the dog park committee, but I did see Steve
And
there with Otis.
Steve and
so-
Yes, Otis and I were there, and I have to say, he sat on the job.
He did.
But we had a great time. It was a beautiful day, and the outdoor center is beautiful. The trails are
it's
great in
amazing.
the back, and it was good.
Yep.
Saw all of our partners from the Y there as well, so it was
Yes,
good.
yes.
Good day.
That's awesome.
And that's all I have.
Very good. Mr. Joe?
Thank you, sir. I didn't attend anything other than the opening day of Farmers Market, which was a fabulous day. I couldn't believe the number of people that attended, but then again, why not? It's,
The perfect day
it
for
was
it.
a great day for it. I appreciate Steve allowing me to give some opening remarks. It was very nice of him to allow me to do that. But it was also nice to see some, old friends in town that I haven't seen in quite some time, and they were there. Nice to see them. So, I have a couple of quick reminders that the Snack Shack, which is located at Stone Park at the Pavilion, will be opening Monday, June 24th, and it'll be Monday through Friday from 11 to 2. So it'll be luncheons and snacks for everybody, and watch for luncheon specials on the Ashland Day website, ashlandday.com. There'll be specials every day, and I think some of the flyers have gone out to some of the town employees. But I was also told that those flyers are gonna be for other people as well, so people see them, utilize it. It's a fun thing to do, and it's also raising money for Ashland Day to help defer the costs. Next Tuesday begins our summer Tuesday night concert series.
Wow.
Yeah, it's starting already.
Yeah.
And they start at 7 o'clock at the gazebo, and accompanying again this year, the Ashland Lions Club, the food trail will be here, and the ice cream vendor will be here. I'm trying to remember their name, and I can't remember from Ashland.
Refreshing concessions?
I'm having a hard time.
Is it refreshing
That's it,
concessions?
that's
Yes,
it,
yeah.
thank you. That's what happens when you get old. And the band, Tuesday night is a jazz and blues band, is a crowd favorite, it's the Bobby Watson Band.
Oh,
They're
So,
always good.
Yeah.
that's one of the better ones that we have, so, let's
to
hope
see
it's
your
not
cousin.
raining. Yeah, you'll see my cousin there, yeah, the saxophone player extraordinaire. And, again, for additional, information on the summer concerts on Tuesday nights, ashlanddaywebsite.com, and WACA-TV has their summer concerts, posted and listed on their, community calendar, which is always a great thing to do. It's the beginning of the summer, so here we go. Thursday nights, family food movie nights. Every Thursday night, it's a family movie night at the Pavilion. Refreshments will be sold at the same token. Everybody that goes there will have the opportunity, they get free popcorn to enjoy the movies, and they're all family-orientated movies. We don't advertise the name of the movie because we have to pay royalties, and we'd rather give the money, utilize it for food and snacks to give freebies for the people that show up.
Yeah.
So you come and you'll see the name on the board that night. So that's how we try to.
And it's a
keep
fun
it close.
time.
It's a great time.
And it's a family movie,
It
so
is,
it's a great
yep.
place to go and
Yep.
bring your chairs or your blankets and
Yep.
let the kids watch the movie
And
with
the
their
other thing,
friends.
like Brandy just mentioned a little while ago, it's the beginning of the summer. The kids are out and about. Please keep an eye on them. I know sometimes we forget that they're on their bikes on the roadway as well. So just keep an eye out on that. And the last thing that they have is St. Cecilia's Family Festival Carnival coming up this weekend.
Right.
Yeah, very good.
And be there with the families just like the old times. I think that was the first carnival I ever went to, was at St. Cecilia's.
Wow,
And that's going back some.
just a little bit.
Just, no, they had horse-drawn pulleys. Here we go.
Someone mentioned,
Welcome to my life, Brandy.
someone mentioned that the last time they had a carnival was possibly in like the mid-sixties
Yeah.
or
It's
something?
Been a while. I don't
Yeah,
remember
it's been
one.
some time. It's
Yeah,
been some time,
that's-
yeah. So, we look forward to seeing everybody there.
Yeah.
That's great.
And that's all I have, Mr.
Okay,
Chair. Thank you.
Very good. So a few things. I think we all received a letter from Superintendent Adams related to some concerns about school funding and some of the potential changes in legislation that they're looking at reviewing. I think that's very much a work in progress. I wouldn't assume anything. There's a great, if you go to to Mass Budget, they have a great analysis of where it stands right now. The governor's proposal, the Promise Act proposal, and there's some other proposals as well. So, we should be aware of that, because there's certainly, if it goes through the way it's projected through the Promise Act, it has a big impact on Ashland. But I think we're a ways before that occurs. So that's one thing. I received a letter the other day about the commuter rail, and a resident that lives on Belcher Circle, I'm not even sure where Belcher
It's
Circle
off of
is.
Olive Street.
Okay, so,
It's Haven Way off that area.
so she wrote two letters, one to me and one to Steve Paltak, I think, who's the general manager of the MBTA.
Yeah.
Paltak, okay, and it's short, just so bear with me. Dear Mr. Paltak, I am a longtime commuter rail traveler, 2 decades as a daily commuter from Needham, and now periodically as a retiree in Ashland. I am writing because in the past year, it has become impossible to use the commuter rail from Ashland after peak morning commuting hours due to inadequate parking at the MBTA-owned lots. By 10:30 in the morning, all the parking spaces in both lots are occupied. On several occasions, I have arrived in inadequate time to check both lots, a trip of more than 2 miles to get around the railroad tracks, and found no spaces at either location. Unless one chooses to park illegally, not in a marked spot, there is no option other than drive all the way into Boston or drive to a Green Line station. The last paragraph reads, in an era when we are being encouraged with good reason to use public transportation, this is a backwards and unacceptable situation. I urge the MBTA to find a way to reconfigure spaces, build additional parking, or find another parking alternative for travelers in this area. So, it has implications on a lot of what we just talked about, certainly. I mean, I don't know, according to this, it's 100% capacity. I don't know if that's every day there, but I know
that's
it's.
750 cars a day.
Plus Burnham's,
But
which
plus
were over 1,000.
plus across the street at the VFW, so,
Yeah.
but I think it goes to, your suggestion about some kind of survey where people are coming from,
Yeah.
and also that kind of last mile. How do
Yeah.
we have a better infrastructure system, whether it's the MWRTA or something else that brings people to the station? Now, I know we required Cirrus Apartments to provide a shuttle service. I'm assuming the UGC project, if it goes through, will be required to do the same thing. So, you know, but I think it, you know, it goes to, you know,
Yeah.
a more
Let's look at how to do that.
looking at this stuff, so.
Because it is a difficult, because we built a large parking lot there, and we're kind of dealing, so we provided a real regional, pardon me?
Not downtown.
Right.
Yeah.
We provided a real regional service, and I think that's what we're functioning
Yeah.
as, and he's paid,
$0.
yeah. And like, if you look at Southborough, this is our pet peeve, they got 180 spaces
Yeah.
or something,
Mm.
we have over 1,000.
Yeah.
You know, so there's not an easy fix to running out of parking spaces now. It's been 20 years, and
Mm.
we are starting to run out.
Yeah,
It is, I thought the Dunkin' Donuts side, to use a technical term, still always has spaces, but
yeah.
that's a surprise to learn that that's filling up as well.
I've
so.
heard from people that it is virtually impossible once peak time is
Yeah.
passed.
So that's
I-
really,
I'm usually on a 7:30 train into Boston every morning, and I park at Burnham's. You know, I do private parking, but I've heard anyone that's basically leaving after there's a train that goes into Boston about 9 o'clock, and anything after that is, it's hard. It's
that
really hard
side
to
is
find.
fills up
Yeah.
by 8 o'clock.
It's challenging on a number of levels. I mean, you know, like last meeting, we talked about going into the State House and having discussions with the T about how they can make improvements to the station. Didn't talk about adding parking
No.
at all, but, you know, I think we need to explore this more and more.
And I think it's recent. I don't think it's,
No,
I think
that's
it's
right.
probably been within the last, I would say, year or so that
Yeah.
we've seen the parking shortage.
And I think it also has impacts throughout the town, because you know, and I think you and I, Yolanda, being off of Prospect Street, or on
Yeah.
Prospect Street, you see the traffic that comes in through from Holliston.
Right.
And
Oh, you think they
typically,
come
they're
Prospect.
going at a high rate of speed in order to get to the train. And
On
that's one
time,
of the
you
issues.
gotta get there, yeah, right.
So that's one of the challenges.
The other,
So-
I just an update, so I've seen that Sears van, and it actually is full. You know, they get like 10 or 12
Yeah.
people in there, so
Yeah.
people are using it, and people are also walking on the trail as well,
Right,
so we see
Mhm.
that, so that's
Oh,
all
yeah.
good.
That's good,
Yeah.
that's good. Last thing I had is we had a development liaison meeting on yesterday, Wednesday. Tuesday, sorry.
Tuesday
but
morning.
Today's Wednesday. So it was the second meeting with this particular developer. Thought it went well. I thought it was worked the way I kind of had envisioned it in terms of advocating for this. And, you know, it's no decision-making, there's no votes, there's, you know, just discussion and kind of sharing of information and ideas and so on. And I think it's, you know, you've got planning board member there, you've got Yolanda and I serve on that, so, you know, I think it's seems to be working in that, for that purpose. And at this point, we won't be meeting with this particular developer anymore because he will be submitting plans to the planning board, and they'll start that process. So just wanted to comment on that. And then the only other thing I have is we want to think about a retreat date. And so if you want to maybe throw out dates that you're away, and we can kind of pull out some dates and do it that way. I don't think we need to sit here right
No.
now,
No,
but
but let's, yeah.
let's think about,
Remind me, what's the we're talking about summer, late summer?
yeah, we're
fall?
talking about the summer, yeah.
Are we
And
thinking
an
more
evening.
July? Or
It's really,
Evening weeknight, right?
An
Yeah,
evening
yeah.
weeknight.
yeah, and I think we can do it, you know, we can have, like we usually do, have some supper and have
Yeah.
a
Yeah,
conversation.
July is
It's probably the best time?
Mm.
Yeah.
Okay, so, what's people away July?
I'm away in February, so.
Okay, I'm here in July.
So right now, I'm here in July,
Okay.
so.
Yeah, same with me.
I'm here in July.
Okay, so
it's
why
good.
don't I throw out some dates,
Okay.
and then
Okay.
folks can
Sounds good.
yay or nay. All right?
Sounds good.
Great.
Okay, and that's
maybe
all.
with
I
the
would,
email,
uh,
just
I
confirm
would
our
just
other
say Tuesday
dates.
nights for
Yeah.
me are difficult. I have commitments on Tuesdays.
So we won't be, we don't do Tuesday
I'm
night.
just saying
Yeah.
Tuesday.
Is that bocce? What is it?
Did you say we would do Tuesday?
So I think
Excuse me. Oh.
that's my tune this evening. Thank you, Mrs. Roby, for your work this evening.
The exercise, I can't wait to do the
And
trail.
so I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you and good night. And see-